Chapter 181. Master's idea is a good one. Yi Ling looked gently at Qin Yan and said with a smile, "Qin Yan, you are the woman I want to find. I admire your strength, perseverance, loyalty and protectiveness. Besides, as long as I want to marry you, no one can stop me." He admired her character, but he had only developed feelings for this little girl after spending more than half a year with her. He was not a man who cared about family status. As long as he loved her, he would marry her even if she was a beggar. If he did not love her, it would be useless even if the emperor's daughter came. I'll listen to you, Mississippi." What she meant was that she agreed with their idea. But because she was too shy, she did not directly acknowledge Yi Ling. Yi Ling's heart leaped with joy and she knelt on one knee in front of Yun Luofeng. "Master, I sincerely thank you. It's because of you that I was able to meet Qin Yan. From now on, I'll protect her with my life. Please don't worry, Master." Yun Luofeng gently raised his hand. In an instant, a powerful force grabbed Yi Ling's body and pulled her up. Yi Ling looked at Yun Luofeng in surprise. In reality, Yi Ling was similar to the others. She thought that Yun Luofeng's medical skills were very strong, but his strength was not that great. In addition, Yun Luofeng had never revealed his strength in the past half a year. Hence, she had no idea of Yun Luofeng's strength. But now, under the young girl's power, he could not even exert a little bit of his strength. It was clear to see how strong this young girl was. Above a high spiritualist? An earth spiritualist? Whether it was Long Yuan country or Flowing Gold country, the most powerful people were only high spiritualists. If Yun Luofeng really became an earth spiritualist, no one in several countries would be a match for her. "Yi Ling, I want you to stand by Qin Yan's side no matter what happens. Even if you have to become enemies with your loved ones, are you willing?" "I'm willing." Yi Ling said these 3 words resolutely. "All right, find a suitable time and I'll arrange a marriage for you." Yun Luofeng's lips curled into a demonic smile. This little girl, Qin Yan, has been by her side for a long time. She would definitely choose a good husband for her. It was obvious that the current Yi Ling fulfilled her requirements. Also, you need to be prepared. Empress Rong will not let you off so easily. More importantly, she will definitely go to Wuzhong. I want to see how Wuzhong will react. If it wasn't to test Wuzhong, she wouldn't have let Empress Rong leave unscathed just because she heard Empress Rong say she would be beaten to death. Murderous intent flashed across Yun Luofeng's eyes as she coldly laughed. Revenge is a dish best served cold. If Empress Rong really had something to do with the death of her parents, then she would definitely settle the scores with her. Windfall Pavilion. Empress Rong sat in the main hall with a cup of tea in her hand. She sipped it gracefully. "Steward Wuzhong, I came to visit because I have a gift for you." "What gift?" Wu Zhongtou only cared about the tea in his hand. From beginning to end, he did not even look at Empress Rong. His voice was cold and disdainful. The Windfall Pavilion had a very high status in the Flowing Gold country. As the steward of the Windfall Pavilion, Wu Zhong naturally had the right to look down on the Empress. Empress Rong's expression did not look too good, but she suppressed the displeasure in her heart in the end. She smiled gracefully. "It's like this. Some time ago, I accidentally met a beautiful girl. I also found out that this beautiful girl admires Steward Wuzhong. She especially asked me to come and plead on her behalf. She is willing to become Steward Wuzhong's concubine. All I need is for Steward Wuzhong to send someone from the Windfall Pavilion to fetch her." Chapter 182. Everyone knew that Steward Wuzhong had no hobbies other than beautiful women. This was the only way to please him. Sure enough, after hearing Empress Rong's words, Wu Zhong's eyes shone with a strange light and his brows were filled with great interest. "Oh." He raised an eyebrow and looked excited. "What does the girl look like? Do you have a portrait?" Empress Rong smiled confidently. She raised her hand and clapped twice. "Servants, bring out the portrait." "Yes, Your Majesty." Hearing this, the two palace maids behind Empress Rong held a portrait in their hands and walked lightly towards Wu Zhong. "Steward Wu Zhong, this is the portrait of the girl. If you like it, I will be the matchmaker and have her marry as a princess of the imperial family." Empress Rong smiled gracefully. She had her reasons for doing this. Since she wanted to build a good relationship with Wu Zhong, the imperial family had to step in and accept Yun Luofeng as their adopted daughter. Only then would it be beneficial to the imperial family. Wu Zhong slowly unrolled the portrait in his hand. When he saw the arrogant and haughty girl in white, his heart stopped beating and his eyes filled with awe. This painting was beautifully drawn, and even the arrogance between her brows could be seen on the scroll. Her snow-white dress fluttered in the wind, and her chin was slightly raised as she stared at the deep blue sky. The corners of her lips curled into a mocking smile, as if she didn't even put the heavens in her eyes. Not bad at all. I've lived for so many years but I've never seen such a beautiful girl. Wu Zhong closed the portrait and praised sincerely, "Empress Rong, are you sure this girl is willing to marry me?" Empress Rong smiled confidently. As soon as this girl heard of Steward Wu Zhong's name, she said that she wouldn't marry anyone but you. You can rest assured, Steward Wu Zhong. All you need to do is make some preparations and pick a day to marry her. Luofeng Pavilion was a powerful force. If the Luofeng Pavilion were to personally escort the girl would not be able to defy them. "Empress, may I ask for this girl's name?" Wu Zhong asked after a moment of silence. "I don't know her name. I only know that her surname is Yun." "Cloud?" Wu Zhong was stunned. If he remembered correctly, the deputy pavilion master seemed to have mentioned that the real master behind the scenes of the Windfall Pavilion was also surnamed Yun. It couldn't be such a coincidence, right? As if amused by his own thoughts, Wu Zhong laughed and shook his head helplessly, denying the suspicion in his heart. Even though he had never seen his master's true appearance, he knew that a 14-year-old young girl did not have the ability to assume the position of the pavilion master of the Drifting Wind Pavilion. Therefore, it was impossible for this girl to be his master behind the scenes. Unfortunately, things did not go as he wished. Wu Zhong had never imagined that the master behind the Windfall Pavilion was really just a 14-year-old girl. By the time he found out, it was already too late for regrets. After Empress Rong took her leave, she didn't even have time to walk out of the Zephyr Pavilion when a petite figure suddenly entered her line of sight, causing her expression to instantly darken. "Stop!" Empress Rong snorted coldly. She turned her gloomy gaze towards the little servant girl who had been blocked by her and asked coldly, "Why are you here?" Qing Yan did not expect to see Empress Rong here. Her expression froze for a moment and a trace of surprise flashed across her clear eyes. Chapter 183. How dare you? Our Empress is asking you a question and you refuse to answer. The palace maid's expression changed when she saw the stunned Qing Yan. She stepped forward and scolded her loudly. Qing Yan returned to her senses and a disdainful smile appeared on her pretty and adorable face. "Even the members of the imperial family can come here, why can't I?" Impudence. The palace maid raised her chin and glanced at Qing Yan disdainfully. "You're just a little servant girl and you dare to compare yourself to Her Majesty, the Empress? Our Majesty is the mother of the world and there's no place in this world that she can't go. Who do you think you are? What right do you have to compare yourself to Her Majesty? Furthermore, did your master not teach you that you need to kneel when you see the Empress? What does it mean to be a dog that relies on its master's power?" This was vividly displayed by the palace maids. As fellow maidservants, they had always felt that they were a cut above others. Their words clearly showed that they had no regard for Qing Yan. "I may be a maidservant but I only serve one person. In this world, the only person who can make me kneel is my lady. Who do you think you are? I, Qing Yan, am a girl with a backbone. I will never yield to power." Qing Yan's flushed face was filled with determination. She raised her chin fearlessly and her clear eyes were like a clear spring, reflecting the ferocious look on her face. "You." Empress Rong never thought that this little servant girl would dare to speak to her in such a manner. Her face turned red with anger and she pointed a finger angrily at Qing Yan's nose, since you wish to become the third prince's consort, you can't be so unruly. Guards, bring this girl into the palace. I want to teach her how to respect her elders and how to be a daughter-in-law of the imperial family. Empress Rong gritted her teeth as she spoke. Her ferocious expression made it seem as if she could not wait to tear Qin Yan apart and devour her. Now, even a little servant girl dares to look down on her. If she does not set the rules, who in the flowing gold kingdom would dare to obey her orders from now on? Yes, your majesty. The palace maids rubbed their fists and walked towards Qin Yan. Their faces were extremely ferocious and their eyes shone with a sinister light. You want to teach me the rules? You don't have the right. Qin Yan sneered. As the saying goes, like master, like maid. In this half a year, Qin Yan didn't learn anything else, but she learned a bit of Yun Luofeng's arrogance. It was because she understood that she was the young Miss Servant Girl. No matter what, she could not embarrass the young miss, and she could not show weakness in front of the enemy. Bang! After the palace maids grabbed onto Qin Yan's arm, a wave of power leaked out from within Qin Yan's body, sending the palace maids flying in an instant and sending them crashing miserably to the ground. Empress Rong's expression froze. She never thought that Qin Yan, as a maidservant, would have a cultivation base. No wonder Yi Ling didn't treat her like an ordinary servant. Unfortunately, a maidservant was a maidservant. No matter what, she couldn't change her fate of serving others. Damned girl, if you want to be the third prince's consort, you have to get my permission first. This consort will enter the palace right now and explain this matter to His Majesty. This consort will make it so that you'll never be able to be with that brat Yi Ling for the rest of your life. Qin Yan looked disdainfully at the ashen-faced Empress Rong and said mockingly, I didn't say I wanted to be the third prince's wife. The person I like is Yi Ling, not the third prince. If Yi Ling is willing to be a prince, she will be his consort. If he is unwilling, she will only be his future wife. Chapter 184. Good, very good. Remember what you said. Empress Rong's eyes were dark. She turned towards the servants of the Windfall Pavilion and gritted her teeth. The security at your Windfall Pavilion is too lax. You've let just anyone in. If Steward Wu Zhong were to punish you, would you be able to bear the consequences? Your Majesty, I'm truly sorry. The servant was stopped by Empress Rong, but he did not get angry. Instead, he wore an appropriate smile on his face and looked apologetic. Empress Rong's face lit up with pride. She was just about to order the servants to throw Qin Yan out when the servant suddenly changed his tone and continued, You're right. You're right. Our Windfall Pavilion isn't a place where just anyone can enter. Please leave, Your Majesty. Empress Rong's face froze. She widened her beautiful eyes and pointed a fair finger at the servant of the Windfall Pavilion. She asked in disbelief, What did you just say? Your Majesty, this is Windfall Pavilion's territory. If Your Majesty causes trouble here, I'll have someone escort you out. The servant bowed slightly and replied in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. Aren't you afraid that I'll complain to Steward Wu Zhong? Empress Rong gritted her teeth and roared angrily. The servant's eyes flashed with disdain when he heard this. I just don't want anyone to sully Windfall Pavilion's territory. I have no other intentions. If Your Majesty thinks that Steward Wu Zhong will punish me for this, then I'll just have to admit that I'm unlucky. You're all very good. Empress Rong's eyes darkened. Her gaze swept across the servant like a knife and landed on Qin Yan. Just you wait for today's matter. I will not let this matter rest. This was Windfall Pavilion's territory after all. She did not dare to act rashly. Furthermore, the servant was helping this little slut so much. Perhaps they had an affair. Once she has gained Wu Zhong's trust, she would settle the score with them. Let's go. Empress Rong's voice sank at the thought and she ordered icily. Yes, Your Majesty. The palace maids responded respectfully. They could not understand why Empress Rong, the mother of the nation, would want to curry favor with the servants of Windfall Pavilion. He didn't even dare to act rashly in front of a mere servant. Miss Qin Yan. The servant did not even look at the furious Empress Rong. He turned to face Qin Yan and greeted her respectfully. "What's your name?" Qin Yan raised her eyebrows and looked at the person before her as she asked. "I'm Fang Yu." "Does Miss Qin Yan have anything else to say?" Fang Yu's voice was neither servile nor overbearing, but it was clearly more respectful than when he was in front of Empress Rong. Although he did not know Qin Yan's true identity, he had often seen Qin Yan by the Vice Pavilion Master's side during the past 6 months. Especially the way they interacted, it was as if they were friends. Because of this, many people in the Windfall Pavilion guessed that Qin Yan might be the same as the Vice Pavilion Master. They were both people by the Pavilion Master's side. That was why she was able to obtain the Vice Pavilion Master's respect and trust. "You did very well just now," Qin Yan nodded her chin in satisfaction. "There are very few people like you who can handle things like this. I will report to the Pavilion Master later and let you be promoted." Qin Yan was referring to the Pavilion Master, not the Vice Pavilion Master. Fang Yu was a little dumbfounded when he heard this. He raised his eyebrows in astonishment and stared in the direction where Qin Yan had left. His eyes were filled with deep shock. As expected, Miss Qin Yan really is one of the Pavilion Master's people. As soon as he thought about his promotion, Fang Yu became very excited. Chapter 185. Xiao, so you're here. You've certainly made it difficult for me to find you. The woman in red slowly walked towards the man in front of her amidst the dark clouds in the forest. Her eyes were filled with gentleness and yearning. The man's grim figure was clearly reflected in her beautiful eyes. The man's face was covered by an ice-cold mask and his body exuded a grim aura that no one could approach. This aura forced the woman in red to stop in her tracks. However, a gentle smile still hung on her face. "During this period of time, 2 forces have been looking for you. One is the eldest lady of the Spirit Order and the other is the Shao family. Even though they haven't mentioned your name, I know that the person they're looking for is you." Yun Shao gently pursed his light red lips as if he had not heard the woman in red's words. His grim gaze continued to stare at an empty spot not too far away from him. "I'm afraid that no one knows better than you why the eldest lady of the Spirit Order is looking for you." The woman in red covered her lips and smiled tenderly. Her beautiful eyes swirled and rippled with light. "Who asked you to be so mesmerizing? Even with a mask on, you can attract countless women. If you were to remove your mask, who knows how many people would go crazy for you." Unfortunately, this man was far too grim. His black eyes never wavered in the slightest. "I really don't know if there's anything in this world that could move him." As for the Shao family, the woman in red noticed that Yun Shao had ignored her, but she was not angered. She continued to smile and said, "I've heard that the Shao family once had a good-for-nothing young master who was chased out of the Shao family when he was 7 years old. Since then, there has been no news of him. I wonder what's your relationship with that young master of the Shao family?" Her words carried a sense of probing as her beautiful eyes glanced towards Yun Shao. What disappointed her was that this man remained unmoved as if what she had just said was an unimportant matter. If Yun Luofeng was here, he would certainly be able to guess that the young master of the Shao family who had been chased out of the family was Yun Shao. There was no other reason than that Yun Zhao's physique was the illusory spirit body. People who possessed this kind of physique would not be able to cultivate before the age of 10 and would only advance by leaps and bounds after the age of 10. Hence, a large family like the Shao family could not tolerate the existence of trash and would very likely chase him out of the family. "Shao," the woman in red pursed her red lips as a strange light flashed across her beautiful eyes. "The Shao family doesn't seem to know about your true identity. I understand that you don't want the snobbish Shao family to know about your current strength. If you're willing to let me stay by your side, I'll help you keep your secret. What do you think?" Her eyes were filled with infatuation. "I don't want to be your wife. I just want to be by your side and risk my life for you." There was finally a slight change in Yun Zhao's gaze. His grim gaze slowly turned towards the red-robed woman's beautiful face as he spoke expressionlessly. "There's another type of person who can keep a secret. That is, a dead person." The red-robed woman's expression changed abruptly as she bit her lips tightly. "Shao, you. My name is Yun Shao, the man's aura spread out and covered the sky as he charged towards the red-robed woman. His gaze was as cold as a hawk's as he spoke expressionlessly, "You have no right to call me Shao." Hee, the red-robed woman laughed bitterly. Under the man's aura, her body felt as if it was being crushed by a great mountain and she was unable to move. Everyone says that the Ghost Emperor is cold and heartless, especially towards women. He does not have any tender feelings for the fairer sex. Now that I've seen it, it seems to be true. Yun Zhao's voice was low and hoarse as he stared coldly at the red-robed woman. I, Yun Zhao, will only have tender feelings for one woman in this life. But that person is not you. Chapter 186. I, Yun Zhao, will only take pity on one woman in this life. But that person is not you. The man's cold and merciless words completely hurt the woman in red, causing her face to turn incomparably pale. Suddenly, she was envious of the woman the Ghost Emperor had mentioned. What kind of peerless beauty could make this man take pity on her? I really want to meet that lady, so that I can understand why I've lost. Her beautiful face lit up with a bitter smile. The bitterness in her heart had long spread and her eyes were filled with pain. And if my guess is correct, that lady is Long Yuan country's famous good-for-nothing, Yun Luofeng? As soon as Yun Luofeng's name was mentioned, she could clearly feel the man's increasingly cold aura. This aura was like a sharp long sword, causing her heart to instantly bleed. Thinking of the news she had received during this period of time, the woman in red bit her lip and raised her beautiful eyes to stare straight at Yun Zhao. Someone as honorable as you, why would you willingly become a guard for a woman? Could it be that you've lowered yourself just so that she would approve of you? The man gently pursed his thin lips and his grim gaze swept icily towards the woman in red. Then, he finally took a step forward and slowly walked towards the woman in red. With every step that the man took, the woman in red found it difficult to breathe. It was as if a hand was fiercely squeezing her heart, making it hard for her to breathe. You don't deserve to know the reason. You don't deserve to know. Hee. The woman in red laughed self-deprecatingly. This man is always so heartless. His every word and action was like a sharp thorn, piercing fiercely into her heart, causing her already battered heart to become even more fragmented. Shao, you want to kill me? Upon sensing the man's murderous intent, the woman in red's body trembled. Her beautiful eyes stared at the man who was walking towards her, her face turning increasingly pale. You know too many things. The man's words were concise and comprehensive as usual, unwilling to say anything unimportant. What? The woman in red clearly did not understand Yun Zhao's meaning and was slightly taken aback. You know of her existence. The man glanced coldly at the woman in red and the murderous aura on his body intensified. I won't let any danger stay by her side. In other words, since this woman had been pestering him endlessly and knew of Yun Luofeng's existence, he would not allow such a danger to exist no matter what. No. The woman in red screamed as she stumbled back. Her face was drained of all color as she stared at Yun Zhao with a heartbroken gaze. I was only curious about what kind of woman she was. I had no intention of hurting her. You can't do this to me. Yun Zhao had already walked in front of the red-clothed woman and there was no longer any path of retreat behind the woman. Her tightly bitten lips were no longer as rosy as they were at the beginning, but had turned pale. I won't use her to test you. I will only nip all dangers in the bud. He didn't dare to take the risk, and he didn't dare to gamble on whether or not this woman wanted to take revenge on Yun Luofeng. Because the consequences of losing the gamble was not something he could bear. Bang! The woman's legs went soft, and she fell to the ground. Her hands gripped the ground beneath her tightly, and her sharp nails dug deep into the soil as she grabbed a handful of soil. She knew that Yun Zhao was speaking the truth. Even though she had no intention of killing Yun Luofeng now, she could not be sure if she would be able to maintain a calm heart when she actually sees Yun Luofeng. Chapter 187. It was likely that anyone who faced a love rival would find it difficult to do so. Yun Zhao, I can't have you in this lifetime, but if I were to die in your hands, it would be a form of release for me. The woman in red gently closed her eyes and the corners of her lips curled into a faint smile. Yun Luofeng, you really make one extremely envious. Even though you're just a good-for-nothing and have a lowly status, you're the only soft spot in this cold and heartless man's heart. In order to prevent you from being hurt, he did not hesitate to nip all dangers in the bud. I don't know what fucking luck you had in your past life to be able to obtain such an outstanding man. Tui. Suddenly, a wave of energy entered from the top of her head and even her body was pushed open. She slowly opened her eyes and gazed at the man in front of her with deep affection and longing, carving his figure deeply into her mind. Yun Shao, if it wasn't for Yun Luofeng, would you have allowed me to stay by your side? She stubbornly wanted to know the answer, even though she clearly knew the other party's choice. The man did not reply to her. Perhaps to him, saying another word to her was a waste of breath. He naturally had an answer in his heart and there was no need to say it to an unimportant person. Yun Shao, I don't regret knowing you. The woman in red smiled bitterly. Even if she was given another chance, she would still fall in love with this man. However, she would not be as impulsive as she was today, because the result of her impulsiveness was not to obtain him but to lose her life here. Tui. A muffled sound suddenly rang out. Immediately after, the woman in red's body seemed to have been poked with countless holes. Blood flowed continuously from those holes and at the same time, her body was like a deflated balloon, gradually shriveling up. Master. Qin Yuan appeared behind Yun Shao and looked coldly at the woman in red who was gradually falling to the ground. There was no trace of sympathy or pity in his eyes. Just as Master had said, if this woman was not killed, she would definitely cause countless troubles. She would also cause trouble for Miss Yun. However, it was obvious that Miss Yun was Master's reverse scale. How could Master allow anyone who could threaten her to exist? He would only nip all dangers in the bud. He would never give it the chance to sprout. How are we going to deal with the Shao family? Qin Yuan frowned. This woman is right. Recently, the Shao family has indeed been searching for Master. It's just that they don't know about Master's current achievements. Otherwise, the Shao family would definitely kneel down and apologize. Yun Shao gently lowered his eyes, the face under the mask was cold and callous. His hands were clasped behind his back from start to finish, his ramrod straight figure standing amidst the mountain wind, the corners of his pale red lips seemed to curl into a mocking smile. But this smile disappeared so quickly that Qin Yuan thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. His master, who had always been expressionless, could actually have other expressions. How is Gao Ling? Yun Zhao's black eyes slowly turned towards Qin Yuan and he asked coldly. Ah. Qin Yuan was stunned, he did not expect Yun Shao to ask about Gao Ling's condition at this time. After a moment of silence, he replied, living a life worse than death. That's right, Gao Ling's life was worse than death. If it wasn't for the fact that he didn't have the courage to commit suicide, perhaps he would have already died. Compared to the physical pain he was suffering, the psychological trauma he had suffered over the past few days was the most torturous. Especially the humiliation he had received from his benefactors, he wanted nothing more than to hack them into 1,000 pieces. Chapter 188. Continue. Yun Shao threw this sentence at him and walked out of the forest, leaving a dumbfounded Qin Yuan behind. Continue? What does that mean? Could it be that Gao Ling has offended Master in some way? No, I must inform Chun Nyang and make her punish Yun Shao even more severely. Gao Ling probably did not expect Yun Zhao's casual words to cause him to suffer unimaginable torment. From then on, all the guests he had received had changed from normal people to a bunch of perverts. In the days that followed, he finally understood what cruelty was. His experience in the bamboo building has become an eternal nightmare in his heart. By the Emperor's orders, His Royal Highness, the third prince, is to bring Miss Yun to the palace to see the Emperor. She is to be bestowed upon by the Emperor. The tranquility of the third prince's residence was broken by this sharp voice. Yun Luofeng, who was sitting in the pavilion, slightly raised her eyebrows. A smile flashed in her demonic and charming black eyes. She lazily got up and turned her head to look at the little servant girl, Qin Yan, beside her. She asked, Qin Yan, do you want to come with me to see your in-laws? Qing Yan was shocked and raised her head to look at Yun Luofeng. When she saw Yun Luofeng's mocking smile, she realized that she was teasing her. She stomped her foot angrily and said, "My lady, you're teasing me again. The imperial family will never accept me. However, if my lady wishes to enter the palace, I will follow you. Let's go." Yun Luofeng shrugged her shoulders and a strange light flashed across her dark eyes. She smiled soundlessly. "I want to know what choice Wu Zhong has made." Qing Yan nodded seriously. "My lady, I met Empress Rong when I went to Zephyr Pavilion today. She must have gone for Steward Wu Zhong. If Wu Zhong is truly disloyal, he is not fit to serve you, my lady." Yun Luofeng curled the corners of her lips and walked out of the courtyard. She raised her head to look at the azure sky and the demonic smile in her eyes became even more pronounced. Was she not here to meet the Emperor of Flowing Gold Country? This was because only by meeting that man would she be able to clearly understand who had killed her parents back then. Therefore, no matter how big of a move she made, there was only one goal, and that was to enter the palace. All the civil and military officials were gathered in the majestic main hall of the imperial palace. As their leader, General Yi had a worried look on his face as he glanced at Yun Luofeng from time to time. To him, Yun Luofeng's identity must have been discovered by His Majesty. That's why His Majesty summoned her. If that's the case, then her life will be in danger. "My beloved subjects, I have summoned you here to make an announcement." On the high seat was a bright yellow dragon robe, but it did not set off the man's imposing manner. His face was a little pale, and it was obvious that it was because he had overindulged in lust. His foundation was obviously weak, and this was the result of indulging in lust. Although the Emperor of Long Yuan country was a fatuous ruler, he was only overly biased towards the Mu family. However, the Emperor of Flowing Gold country, Director Yi, was a fatuous and tyrannical man. All day long, he only knew how to fool around with the beauties in his harem and paid no attention to court affairs. Director Yi coughed lightly, and a dignified look appeared on his pale face. Yesterday, Empress Rong went to the third prince's residence and met this Miss Yun. She hit it off with her at first sight and is willing to adopt her as her daughter. Hence, I have summoned all my beloved subjects here to make this announcement. Since the steward of Zephyr Pavilion had taken a liking to this woman, he had to win her over to the imperial palace no matter what. Only then could the imperial palace benefit greatly. Chapter 189. The officials were in an uproar. All the officials looked at each other in dismay, their eyes full of surprise. Some of them even sized up Yun Luofeng, as if they were wondering what on earth this girl was capable of to make Empress Rong admire her so much. This official objects. Under Director Ye's dissatisfied gaze, Yi Bufan slowly stepped forward and lowered his head. "Your Majesty, if Empress Rong wants to adopt her as her daughter, then she will be the princess of Flowing Gold country." "This is too rash," this official disagrees. He had received news that Empress Rong had left the third prince's residence in a huff, so how could they hit it off? Thus, no matter what they were planning, he would never agree to this. "Humph." Director Yi snorted coldly. "General Yi, I have already decided on this matter, so you don't have to say anything more. There's no time like the present. Today, I will adopt this daughter and add her name to the family tree." From beginning to end, Director Yi had never asked for Yun Luofeng's opinion. In his opinion, Yun Luofeng's opinion wasn't very important. As the emperor, wouldn't it be a piece of cake for her to accept a daughter as her foster daughter? But, Director Yi narrowed his eyes slightly as he looked at the girl's beautiful and exquisite face. He had the urge to take her into his harem. If it wasn't for the fact that he wanted to hook up with Luofeng Pavilion, he wouldn't have been willing to give away such a peerless beauty. "Your Majesty. Please reconsider," said Yi Bufan in a serious tone. "Shut up." Director Yi flew into a rage and slammed his palm on the table. "General Yi, you're too long-winded. Once I've decided on something, I will never change my mind." Yi Bufan shook his head helplessly and smiled bitterly. His Majesty would never listen to good advice. Just then, a demonic and lazy voice suddenly rang out, making the atmosphere in the main hall even more tense. Every word and action of yours is about to decide my fate, but have you ever asked for my opinion? Director Yi couldn't help frowning as he turned to look at the girl in white in the main hall. Becoming my daughter will only bring you benefits and absolutely no harm. If you don't have the title of Imperial Princess, do you think Luofeng Pavilion will marry you? Even though Director Yi was an emperor and had an arrogant temperament, he was well aware of the Windfall Pavilion's strength. This was especially so for Steward Wu Zhong. When he first joined the Windfall Pavilion, his name had already spread throughout the Flowing Gold Nation. Steward Wu Zhong had originally wanted to pay a heavy price to recruit him, but who would have thought that he would choose the Windfall Pavilion in the end? Wu Zhong agreed. Yi Ling's eyes darkened, and a trace of coldness flashed across her eyes. He did not reveal his identity in the Windfall Pavilion and even used the name Yi Ling to become the Deputy Pavilion Master. However, everyone in the Windfall Pavilion could tell that he did not have a good impression of the imperial family. Wu Zhong actually agreed to Empress Rong's request. This action was clearly provoking him. Impudent. Chairman Ye's eyes turned cold as he reprimanded, "Unfilial son, who allowed you to interrupt without my permission? As a hostage of the Long Yuan nation, you sneaked back to your country. I have already sent someone to inform the Long Yuan nation. In a few days, you will leave with the people from the Long Yuan nation." He would never allow Yi Ling to return. Who knew if Yi Ling's escape would lead to another war between the two countries? Hearing Chairman Ye's words, Yi Ling's heart gradually turned cold. They were both his sons, but the difference between them was not small at all. She really didn't know what else was there for him to miss in a place like this. Chapter 190. Little did they know that Chairman Ye's words also hurt the hearts of the civil and military officials. Yi Bufan looked at Yi Ling with heartache and shook his head. A bitter smile hung on his face. For the first time, he regretted persevering for such an emperor. Can you see it clearly? Yun Luofeng walked to Yi Ling's side, his lips curling into an evil smile. These so-called relatives? Since ancient times, the royal family was heartless. In a family like this, how could there be true father-son love? Yi Ling laughed mockingly. Ever since a few years ago, when he wanted to sue for peace, he sent me to Long Yuan country as a hostage. From then on, I've seen through him. Chairman Ye's face darkened. Unfilial son, as a prince of our country, you should contribute to our country. But you, not only did you escape back to your country, you even wanted to marry a servant girl. You're simply a disgrace to the royal family. Since that's the case, you should go to Long Yuan country and spend the rest of your life there, dying of old age. Guards, arrest him and throw him in jail until the people from the Long Yuan nation arrive. As you command. The guards cupped their fists and walked coldly toward Yi Ling, quickly surrounding the few people in the hall. Yun Luofeng crossed her arms in front of her chest, exuding a demonic aura. Her black eyes were incomparably dark and contained an evil smile. I'm afraid you won't have the chance to put Yi Ling in jail. As soon as he finished speaking, the sound of music could be heard from outside the hall. Then, several maidservants carrying a bridal sedan slowly descended from the sky. At the very front of the sedan was a middle-aged man. The middle-aged man was already over 50 years old, but because he had taken good care of his body, his face was glowing with health. He stroked his black beard and walked into the main hall with satisfaction. Empress Rong once said that her newly adopted daughter adores me. Now, I can't wait to marry her. I wonder if my wife is here. Wu Zhong laughed heartily as he walked in. As soon as he stepped into the main hall, he noticed a stunning young girl dressed in a snow-white dress. His narrowed eyes showed an undisguised sense of amazement. Right after Wu Zhong finished admiring the young woman's peerlessly beautiful face, he accidentally caught a glimpse of Yi Ling, who stood by the young woman's side, and his face instantly stiffened while his gaze was filled with surprise. Deputy Pavilion Master? Why is he here? Moreover, he was surrounded by the Imperial Guards. Wu Zhong, who did not know what was going on, stopped in his tracks. No one knew what he was thinking. However, Chairman Yi did not notice the strange expression on his face. He smiled and said, "She is my newly adopted daughter. This time, she will represent the flowing gold nation in marriage with your windfall pavilion. Are you satisfied with her, Steward Wu Zhong? He seemed to have forgotten about Yun Luofeng's rejection and directly arranged her fate. At this moment, Yi Bufan finally understood why Empress Rong wanted to adopt her as her daughter. It turned out that Empress Rong wanted to use her to curry favor with the windfall pavilion. This matter was truly disappointing to him. Under everyone's gazes, Yi Ling's gaze slowly shifted towards Wu Zhong. His handsome face was covered in indifference as the corners of his mouth curled into a disdainful arc. I never imagined that I would really see you here. You've really disappointed me. Unfilial son. Chairman Ye's expression changed as he angrily rebuked. How dare you speak to someone from the windfall pavilion like that? Kneel down and apologize. The windfall pavilion's potential was extremely great, and even that lord thought highly of the windfall pavilion. If it was not for that lord's orders, he would not have used this method to curry favor with the windfall pavilion. Chapter 191. Yi Ling smiled disdainfully and ignored Director Yi. His piercingly cold eyes stared straight at Wu Zhong, sending chills down one's spine. Chairman Ye's words gave Wu Zhong a feeling of sudden enlightenment. Why had he not realized that Yi Ling was the third prince of flowing gold country, Yi Ling? No wonder he has a grudge against the imperial family. Even though he had been forced to leave his home as a hostage for a few years, he would still harbor hatred towards the people who had abandoned him. Unfilial son, kneel at once. Director Yi saw that Yi Ling did not respond and his tone became even more serious as he coldly ordered. Kneel? I'm afraid he can't bear it. Yi Ling's handsome face lit up with mockery as he slowly asked, Am I right, Steward Wu Zhong? Hee, Wu Zhong laughed dryly, Deputy Pavilion Leader is right. Even if I were given the courage of the heavens, would never dare to ask the Deputy Pavilion Leader to kneel before me. I would never do something so disrespectful. Despite his dissatisfaction towards Yi Ling, Wu Zhong did not dare to refute him under such circumstances. Hence, he had no choice but to acknowledge Yi Ling's identity. However, his words were like a sudden clap of thunder that exploded in the crowd. Director Yi rose to his feet and stared fixedly at Wu Zhong's smiling face. His tightly clenched fists trembled as he asked, What did you just call Yi Ling? Deputy Pavilion Leader? That's right. Wu Zhong's eyes darkened as he replied with a faint smile, He's the Pavilion Leader of Windfall Pavilion. Thump. Chairman Yi staggered and fell heavily into his seat. His face was pale, and his heart was trembling violently. He was in a daze, and he was unable to recover from this reality. Yi Ling is the steward of Windfall Pavilion? It was laughable that he had given up a ready-made Deputy Pavilion Leader to befriend a steward. How could he have known that the Deputy Pavilion Leader of Windfall Pavilion was his own son? After all, how could he not know how powerful this kid is? No matter how talented he was, he could not possibly order a high spiritualist around. Yi Bufan stared blankly at this nephew that he hadn't seen for a few years. He suddenly realized that he could no longer see through his nephew. However, if his sister's spirit in heaven saw the changes in him, she would definitely feel extremely gratified. Did you just say that Empress Rong told you that I love you? And you actually believed it? Yun Luofeng slowly walked towards Wu Zhong, the corners of her lips curled into a smile. Her pitch-black eyes were incomparably deep, making it impossible for anyone to see through her gaze. When she arrived in front of Wu Zhong, the young girl stopped and raised her eyebrows slightly. I don't know where you get your confidence from to think that I would love someone like you who is already half a foot in the grave. Wu Zhong's face sank. He feared Yi Ling because Yi Ling was the Deputy Pavilion Leader of the Windfall Pavilion. Even if this young woman had curried favor with the Deputy Pavilion Leader, it was impossible for her to shake his position in the Windfall Pavilion. Thinking of this, he snorted coldly. On the mainland, as long as a man has money and power, there will be countless beautiful women throwing themselves at him. So, of course I have this confidence. Is that so? Yun Luofeng laughed evilly. If your power was given to you by the Windfall Pavilion, then the Windfall Pavilion can strip you of your power right now. If you're so confident because you're a high spiritualist, I can cripple your dantian. Remember, I, Yun Luofeng, will never accept betrayal. Chapter 192. Yun Luofeng's voice was very soft, so soft that only she and Wu Zhong could hear it. Wu Zhong could not help but be stunned when he heard the young girl's words. Something flashed through his mind, and he almost caught it. Windfall Pavilion? Yun Luofeng? The master of Windfall Pavilion had the surname Yun? Wu Zhong finally thought of something from this aspect. His entire body froze in an instant, and his face turned deathly pale in an instant. No. Impossible. How could the master of Windfall Pavilion be such a young girl? If it was not her, why was Yi Ling by her side, and why did her name coincidentally have the two words Windfall in it? God, he actually thought that the master of Windfall Pavilion would admire him for power? The entire Windfall Pavilion belonged to her. Why would she cling on to a mere steward? Once he understood this, Wu Zhong's expression grew uglier. Whenever he thought of how Empress Roan had lied to him, a wave of hatred surged in his heart. Director Yi had recovered from his initial shock. He coughed dryly and said, "My son, why didn't you say so earlier as the assistant head of Windfall Pavilion? Since you've left Long Yuan country's control, you are still the Prince of Flowing Gold Nation." Before this, Director Yi had sent Yi Ling to prison, and after learning of his identity, he had acknowledged him as his son. The two completely different attitudes made Yi Ling laugh coldly. "I'm afraid I don't have the fortune to enjoy the identity of Flowing Gold Nation's third prince. Other than that, I'm here to ask you something. Who killed Yun Yang and his wife?" "You." Director Yi was about to explode in anger when he heard Yi Ling's last sentence. His expression changed, and he snorted coldly. That bastard Yun Yang was useless and died on the battlefield. Everyone knows this. Why are you asking this now? Director Ye's eyes flickered as he spoke, avoiding the topic. Is that true? Suddenly, a chuckle could be heard. Yun Luofeng raised his brows slightly and looked at Director Ye's evasive gaze. If it wasn't for Flowing Gold Nation's honey trap, Mu Xingqiu wouldn't have revealed the secret. However, just revealing the secret alone wouldn't have killed them. I just want to know who killed them. Hearing the girl's voice, Chairman Ye's heart skipped a beat. Who are you? What is your relationship with Yun Yang and his wife? Yun Luofeng sneered, I am Yun Yang and his wife's daughter, Yun Luofeng. Yi Bufan shook his head helplessly when he heard Yun Luofeng announce his name. He never thought that he would still have to face such a scene in the end. One was the emperor of the Flowing Gold Kingdom, and the other was the daughter of the person he deeply loved. What choice should he make? Are you Yun Yang and Bai Ling's daughter? Director Ye's expression changed completely. A hint of vigilance appeared in his eyes. What are you doing here? He did not expect Bai Ling's daughter to be here. No wonder he felt that this girl looked familiar from the beginning. She was Bai Ling's daughter. Whether it was her eyebrows or her facial features, they were exactly the same as Bai Ling. He actually could not recognize her at first. Yi Dong wasn't the same as Yi Bufan. Yi Bufan loved Bai Ling to the bone, and every frown and smile of hers was deeply engraved in his soul. Thus, he was able to see through Yun Luofeng's identity with a single glance. However, other people who had seen Bai Ling would only feel that Yun Luofeng looked familiar if they did not have a deep understanding of her. They would not be able to recognize her as Bai Ling's daughter. Chapter 193. I've told you, I'm here to find out who's the real culprit behind their deaths. Yun Luofeng slowly stepped forward. The peerlessly beautiful smile on her face carried a sense of danger like a poppy. Her slightly narrowed black eyes flashed with a cold light as she stared at Director Yi, who was seated high up on the throne. Director Yi returned to his senses and scoffed icily at Yun Luofeng. How can there be no casualties in a war between two countries? Yun Luofeng, what's the point of you coming here to dwell on this? We're already being merciful by not arresting you as a spy. Guards, take this woman away. He waved his hand and ordered coldly. I'd like to see who dares. Yi Ling walked towards Yun Luofeng's side and stared fearlessly at the ashen-faced Director Yi. His handsome face lit up with a disdainful smile as he said, Today, I won't let you touch her. All these years, Director Yi had never cared about him. In his heart, there had always been Empress Rong and her son. Hence, he had long been disappointed in this father in name. In comparison, it was Yun Luofeng who had given him a new lease of life. He had pulled himself together and given him the chance to take his revenge. Director Ye's expression changed and a fierce light flashed in his eyes. My son, even though you're the master of Zephyr Pavilion, you're still my son. Disobeying me is considered unfilial. If you don't want to be an unfilial son, step down. Not only will I let bygones be bygones, I will also make you the crown prince. Yi Ling laughed icily as his handsome face lit up with disdain. He clearly did not take Director Ye's words to heart. I don't care for the position of crown prince. How could the position of crown prince compare to being by Yun Luofeng's side? Hence, even if Director Yi were to step down now, he would not stay any longer. Just as Director Yi was about to lose his temper, a powerful force slammed into his mind with a loud bang, causing his body to tremble violently. In an instant, his mind went blank and his eyes turned lifeless from their initial anger. His gaze was now unfocused. The girl's voice was bewitching and lazy. She continued to tempt him. Tell me what happened that year, including the cause of my parents' death. Tell me everything you know. Chairman Yi looked at Yun Luofeng blankly. More than 10 years ago, I saw Bai Ling. She was so beautiful that even the gods were moved by her beauty, let alone a mere mortal like me. It was inevitable that his heart would be moved when he saw her. It was also during that period of time that the son of an official from my flowing gold country accidentally killed a prince of the Long Yuan country. Actually, for such a small matter, as long as I hand over the son of the official, I would be able to avoid a war. However, I was still trying to find an excuse to start a war with the Long Yuan country. Therefore, I decided to start a war with the Long Yuan country. These words were like a heavy weight that caused the figures of all the officials in the hall to tremble, and they seemed as if they'd suffered an extremely great shock. Among them, Yi Bufan had the biggest reaction. He had always thought that Chairman Yi was fighting against the Long Yuan nation to protect the citizens of the Flowing Gold nation. Even if the Flowing Gold Kingdom was in the wrong, he would still take up his weapon and fight. However, he never thought that the real cause of the war between the two countries was Chairman Ye's lust for beauty. Hee. Suddenly, he laughed. His laughter was filled with endless bitterness as his disappointed gaze fell upon Chairman Yi, who was seated on the dragon throne. So, in the end, those blood-soaked generals and soldiers had sacrificed themselves because of his selfishness. This kind of sacrifice was not worth it. Chapter 194. All the officials realized that something was wrong with Director Yi, but they were still in shock from the news. No one stepped forward to stop him, but they were still digesting his words. So, how did my parents die? Yun Luofeng's dark eyes were calm as she raised her beautiful face to look at Director Yi and continued to ask. Director Ye's voice was fierce. It's all because that woman, Bai Ling, dared to reject me. At that time, I sent someone to send her a letter. If she was willing to follow me, I would retreat immediately. However, she tore my letter and said that I was a toad lusting after a swan's flesh. Was it not? Compared to Bai Ling, who was as beautiful as a flower, Director Yi had nothing good about him other than his status as an emperor. How could she give up on a young major general and choose a fatuous emperor who was addicted to beauty? So, you plotted to kill them? Yun Luofeng's eyes narrowed dangerously, even her tone was tinged with a murderous intent. Of course not. Chairman Yi harumphed, Bai Ling is a married woman. It's her honor that I'm willing to marry her. How dare she insult me? I'm going to get this woman and find 800 spiritual beasts to humiliate her. This is the price she has to pay for rejecting me. Yi Bufan's heart gradually turned cold. He slowly closed his eyes. At this moment, he did not know what kind of cruel torture awaited Bai Ling if she was really captured by the Flowing Gold Kingdom. He had claimed that Bai Ling was the woman he loved, but he had never protected her well. He had even helped such a fatuous emperor to hurt her. He regretted it. This was the first time Yi Bufan regretted being so loyal. He did not hesitate to give up his love for a dog emperor. What a pity. Director Yi shook his head and said regretfully, I don't know who Bai Ling offended, but she died on the battlefield. It's such a pity for such a beautiful woman. She's already dead before I could have her. Yun Luofeng fell silent. Her eyes were dark and deep, no one could tell what she was thinking. Just now, she had used her power to control Director Ye's soul and forced him to tell her the answer she wanted to know. Therefore, it was impossible for Director Yi to lie. He really did not know the mastermind behind the couple's death. Soon, Yun Luofeng's frown relaxed and a glint flashed across her eyes. Young lady. Qin Yan was a little nervous. She stood anxiously beside Yun Luofeng, her delicate face filled with anxiety. She did not expect that not only did she fail to find out the truth, she had also exposed herself. Would her young lady not be in danger? Qin Yan, I've already gotten the result I wanted. We'll talk about the rest when we get back. Yun Luofeng raised his lips and smiled. He should wake up now. As soon as he finished speaking, the focus in Chairman Ye's eyes gradually returned. However, he was still a little confused as he had just woken up. After a while, he suddenly recalled what he had just said and his expression changed drastically. What did you do to me just now? Yi Ling, Yun Luofeng's gaze had long since left Chairman Ye's body. He smiled lazily. Today's mission is complete. Take Wu Zhong and come with me. Chapter 195. How dare you? Seeing that they were about to leave, Director Yi slammed the table and stood up furiously. General Yi, stop these people. As if he hadn't heard this order, Yi Bufan stood upright in the main hall, his eyes full of disappointment and mockery. He didn't even lift a hand to stop Yun Luofeng and the others as they walked past him. General Yi, how dare you disobey my order? Director Ye's expression changed as he shouted angrily. However, Yi Bufan still didn't move. He was as cold as a statue and didn't move at all. Bang! Watching the young girl and the others gradually disappear, Director Yi felt as if all the strength in his body had been sucked out. He suddenly fell back onto his throne and laughed in extreme anger. Good, very good, Yi Bufan. You're really a good person. You don't even listen to my order. What use do I have for you? Yi Bufan took 2 steps forward and bowed deeply as he said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, Your Majesty, the third prince is the deputy pavilion leader of Luofeng Pavilion. No matter how capable this official is, I can't stop him. If Your Majesty thinks that this official is useless, you can take off this official's black hat and give it to someone who is useful. You, Director Yi trembled with anger. He really wanted to kill this guy this time. However, the number of strong cultivators in Flowing Gold Nation was decreasing, and he really didn't have the determination to kill Yi Bufan. Guards, General Yi disobeyed the imperial order. He's in seclusion and is not allowed to come out without my order. Director Yi stood up with an ashen face, flung his sleeves fiercely, and turned to leave. Luofeng Pavilion. Qin Yan looked at the young girl who was sitting at the table and sipping tea. In the end, she couldn't help asking, Miss, weren't we too impulsive today? Not only have we not found the murderer, but our target has also been exposed. Yun Luofeng put down the tea in her hand and an evil smile appeared on her lips. I knew long ago that the person who killed my parents wasn't Director Yi. It can't be him either. Suddenly, Yi Ling's words to her appeared in her mind. Empress Rong? Let's see how long you can stay calm this time, what? Surprise appeared in Qin Yan's eyes. Since you already knew that the young general wasn't killed by the people from the imperial family, why did you still find trouble with Director Yi? Because only by seeing the emperor will I have the chance to understand who killed my parents. Yun Luofeng smiled. And the move I'm using right now is called luring the snake out of its hole. Right now, we only need to wait here and we will soon know the answer. Qin Yan blinked her eyes, her clear eyes staring at Yun Luofeng without blinking. She didn't know why, but the current young miss gave her a calm and steady feeling. Using a phrase to describe it, it was that she held the universe in her hands and had a clear mind. It was as if nothing in this world could stop her. Qin Yan, bring Wu Zhong here. Yun Luofeng's smile carried a hint of danger. I've said it before, I won't accept any betrayal. I won't let off anyone who betrays me. Yes, Mississippi, Qing Yan accepted the order and retreated. Before long, Wu Zhong walked into the room under the escort of Qing Yan and Yi Ling. His expression was extremely unsightly, and his brows sank slightly. Obviously, he was thinking of a countermeasure. Wu Zhong, do you know your crime? Yun Luofeng crossed her legs and raised her brows in an unruly manner. Her black eyes turned to Wu Zhong as she asked. I'm not guilty. Wu Zhong raised his head and looked straight at Yun Luofeng. I was set up by Empress Rong in this matter. At the end of the day, I'm also a victim. So, I don't admit my crime. Chapter 196. I'll give you one last chance. Are you going to admit your mistake? The girl's tone was domineering, arrogant and unruly. She leaned lazily against the chair as she asked lazily. Wu Zhong's expression changed abruptly. He gritted his teeth and said, I don't know what your relationship with Yi Ling is, but Yi Ling and I founded Windfall Pavilion. What have you done in the past 6 months? You've made no contributions to Windfall Pavilion, so why should I acknowledge you as my master? She's only a 14-year-old girl, what abilities could she have? Yi Ling must have taken a fancy to this lass, and in order to curry favor with her, she established this Windfall Pavilion. Even though he did not have a good impression of Yi Ling, he could not help but admire her for being a genius. As for Yun Luofeng, he had long heard that General Yun Luo had a good-for-nothing granddaughter. As a good-for-nothing, what right did she have for him to serve her? Wu Zhong. Yi Ling's expression turned cold, apologized to master. Wu Zhong sneered, when I didn't know her identity, I might have thought of her as a disciple from one of those secluded sections. Otherwise, what ability does a 14-year-old girl have to make you swear loyalty to her? But now, after finding out that she's Yun Luo's granddaughter, I no longer have such naive thoughts. Yi Ling, if you want to please this girl, then do it yourself. Don't drag the entire Windfall Pavilion down with you. What right does a good-for-nothing have to become my master? He did not seem to feel the chill from Yi Ling's body as he glared at her coldly. If you don't want to be the deputy pavilion leader, then get lost. I don't want Windfall Pavilion, which I've spent so much effort on, to be destroyed in your hands. Yi Ling's expression grew colder and colder as the chill from his body thickened. Just as he was about to make a move, a slender arm reached out from the side and stopped him. You're saying that I don't have the right to manage Windfall Pavilion? Yun Luofeng raised his brows and asked with a smile. That's right. Wu Zhong raised his head arrogantly. You and Yi Ling don't have the right. Oh. The smile on Yun Luofeng's face deepened, so you're saying that only you have the right? If none of you have the ability to manage Windfall Pavilion, I can only do it on your behalf. Wu Zhong looked at Yun Luofeng disdainfully. I won't allow a good-for-nothing to destroy the foundation I've painstakingly built. Yi Ling looked at Wu Zhong as if he was an idiot. If Yun Luofeng was still trash, then what were they? Furthermore, he actually had the cheek to claim that he was the only one who could manage the Windfall Pavilion? Yi Ling, I once said that my people do not need to be too talented. They only need to be loyal. But now you have disappointed me. Yun Luofeng shook his head. This is the person you've raised in the past half a year? Hearing this, Yi Ling hurriedly knelt on the ground. Master, this is subordinate's fault. Please forgive me, master. Remember, don't make the same mistake next time. Yun Luofeng glanced at Yi Ling, then retracted his gaze. His evil black eyes turned to Wu Zhong, curled the corners of his lips and slowly rose. You just said that only you have the right to control the Windfall Pavilion? I didn't know that you were so ambitious. Wu Zhong frowned slightly. He looked at Yun Luofeng, who was walking towards him, and a sense of unease rose in his heart. If it was really as he thought, Yi Ling had taken a liking to this girl and had done so many things to please her. But there was no need for him to kneel before her. Could Yi Ling do such a humiliating thing? Chapter 197. What do you want? Wu Zhong snapped out of his thoughts and realized that Yun Luofeng had already walked in front of him. Instantly, he felt a gust of cold wind blow against his face, causing his entire body to shiver. Even he did not understand why this 14-year-old girl could make him feel so oppressed. He had not felt this way even when he was facing a cultivator who was stronger than him in the past. Don't you want to be in charge of Luofeng Pavilion? Yun Luofeng raised her brows and said condescendingly, since that's the case, I can satisfy your ambition. As long as you can defeat me, the position of Pavilion Master of Luofeng Pavilion will be yours. Wu Zhong could not believe such a good thing and stared at Yun Luofeng with wide eyes. Was she sure that if he defeated her, she would abdicate her position? Are you telling the truth? Wu Zhong's eyes sparkled with excitement. He had never thought that he would obtain the position of Luofeng Pavilion so easily. That's right. Yun Luofeng crossed her arms and glanced sideways at him. She curled the corners of her lips. In this world, the weak are prey to the strong. If I'm really no match for you, it's natural for you to become the Pavilion Master of Luofeng Pavilion, but... She paused, an evil glint flashing across her black eyes. Once you attack me, you'll be branded as a traitor. Are you sure you want to do this? Hee. Wu Zhong ignored the initial uneasiness in his heart. He licked the corners of his lips and laughed sinisterly. The position of Pavilion Master has always been for the capable. I have the ability, so naturally, I'm not willing to miss this opportunity. Furthermore, you're just a useless thing. Before he could finish his sentence, there was a loud bang. A slender, jade-like hand containing an extremely powerful force suddenly landed on Wu Zhong's chest. Before his brain could react, his body slammed against the snow-white wall. The dust on the wall fell and covered Wu Zhong's body. He clutched his chest and stood up. There was a raging fire in his chest. Yun Luofeng, you, boom. A leg swept over from the side and ruthlessly kicked him in the face. His body was suddenly swept away and directly smashed a hole in the wall. Get up. She raised her eyebrows slightly, and there was an evil light in her dark eyes. She said arrogantly, continue. Wu Zhong spat out a mouthful of blood amidst the rubble of the collapsed wall. His left cheek was bruised and his eyes were filled with anger and disbelief. You're not trash. Who was the one who said that the granddaughter of the Long Yuan country's general was a piece of trash? Have you ever seen a piece of trash injure a high spiritualist like him? If the person who was spreading the rumor that Yun Luofeng was trash appeared, he guaranteed that he wouldn't beat him to death. Everyone says that I'm trash, but they've forgotten that no one in this world is born trash. Yun Luofeng's eyes were arrogant as he glanced unruly at Wu Zhong. Wu Zhong, if you want to be the Pavilion Master of Fallen Wind Pavilion so much, it's not that I won't give you a chance. As long as you can touch the corner of my clothes, I'll still give this position to you. Arrogant. Wu Zhong snorted coldly. So what if this little girl wasn't a good-for-nothing? I'm an advanced spiritualist, after all, so how can I not even touch the corner of her clothes? Thinking of this, Wu Zhong looked up at Yun Luofeng. Chapter 198. Under the gentle breeze, the young girl's robes were as white as snow. Her beauty was peerless. There seemed to be an arrogance in her eyes, as if she did not place any importance on the world. An evil smile hung on her peerlessly beautiful face and her dark eyes were filled with arrogance. She was like an unrestrained wild horse that no one could tame. Perhaps the young girl's gaze had provoked Wu Zhong, causing him to explode with a powerful force. His entire being was like a sharp sword as he shot towards Yun Luofeng, who was standing not too far away. The young girl did not move. Her hands were behind her back and the corners of her lips were curled into a lazy yet demonic smile. Her fine black hair was like a waterfall as it swayed gently in the gentle breeze. Her attitude clearly showed that she did not place any importance on Wu Zhong. The light smile on her face completely infuriated Wu Zhong, causing his movements to become even more ferocious. He wanted to kill her in one strike. Didn't you say that I can't even touch the corner of your robes? Now, I'll show you my true power. Wu Zhong smiled sinisterly. He watched as his hand moved towards Yun Luofeng like a hook. The smile on his face became even more sinister and a malicious light flashed in his eyes. But, just as Wu Zhong thought that he could grab Yun Luofeng's heart with one strike, he saw the young girl's body move to the side like a gentle breeze, easily evading his attack. Then, without waiting for Wu Zhong to recover from his shock, a leg once again stretched out in front of him and kicked him in the stomach. With a bang, his body once again fell to the ground in an extremely embarrassing position, almost causing his buttocks to split open. Do you still want to be the master of the Zephyr Pavilion? Yun Luofeng slowly stepped forward and placed her foot on his chest. She looked down at him condescendingly. If you haven't given up, I can give you another chance. Unfortunately, you don't have the ability to touch the corner of my robes. The young girl's voice was arrogant and domineering. Her pitch-black eyes were filled with arrogance and unruliness. You. What state is your power at? Wu Zhong bit his lip and asked with a pale face. At this moment, he had truly lost all hope. Who would have thought that a 14-year-old girl would have such power? It's all Empress Rong's fault. If it had not been for her, I would not have offended Yun Luofeng and would not have fallen into her hands. You don't deserve to know my power. Yun Luofeng lifted the corners of her lips. She looked down at the middle-aged man under her foot and said evilly, Wu Zhong, I am a person who cannot tolerate betrayal. You clearly know that Yi Ling and the royal family have enmity, but you still colluded with them. Just this point alone is enough for me to not let you live. Wu Zhong's body trembled and he closed his eyes in despair. That's right, even though he did not know that Yi Ling was the third prince of Flowing Gold Country, he could sense the young man's hatred towards the royal family. But in the end, he still bought Yi Ling and established a relationship with the imperial family. Actually, Wu Zhong hadn't taken Yi Ling seriously since the beginning. He felt that the Windfall Pavilion was only able to obtain its current strength because of him. Since it was like that, there was no need for him to give up the peerless beauty that he'd obtained for Yi Ling. But he had never thought that this peerless beauty was a poison that he could not touch. Chapter 199. Then what do you want? Wu Zhong gritted his teeth. His mind was racing as he tried to think of a countermeasure. Yun Luofeng chuckled and increased the strength of his foot on Wu Zhong's chest. He said coldly, Of course I want you to pay the price for your betrayal. Bang! The young girl's foot stomped down fiercely. Wu Zhong's chest caved in. Then, a shrill cry echoed throughout the entire Zephyr Pavilion, like the howl of a wild beast. Yi Ling, he's already a cripple. Throw him out of the Zephyr Pavilion and let him perish on his own. Her foot not only broke Wu Zhong's ribs, it also destroyed his dantian, turning him into a true cripple. Wu Zhong curled up into a ball, his whole body trembling. He looked at Yun Luofeng with hatred, but even more than that, there was a hidden fear in his heart. Yes. He was afraid of Yun Luofeng. Not only was this young girl powerful, she was also decisive. She was like a nightmare that would haunt him for the rest of his life until he died. Yes, master. Yi Ling cupped his fists and replied respectfully. Then, his expression returned to its usual coldness as he walked towards Wu Zhong, who was lying on the ground. Wu Zhong, consider yourself unlucky. You fell into my master's hands and even dared to violate her. Master has already shown mercy by not putting you to death by 1,000 cuts. Now, you can go out and perish on your own. At this moment, Yi Ling felt very fortunate. Fortunate that half a year ago, Yun Luofeng was in need of manpower. Otherwise, just based on the fact that he had helped the emperor of Long Yuan country to plot against her, he would have died 1,000,000 times over. Qing Yan, I'm tired. Let's go back and rest. Yun Luofeng yawned lazily and slowly withdrew his foot from Wu Zhong's body. She believed that Yi Ling would handle the rest of the matter well. The Imperial Palace. In a luxurious and dignified bedroom, Empress Rong dismissed all the palace maids and sent her trusted aides to wait outside. After she had done all this, a cold laugh came from behind the door, causing her to tremble in fear. That Yun Luofeng is really interesting. Empress Rong's expression changed. She turned to look at the handsome man who had appeared behind her and was sipping tea. Young Master Bai, I beg you, please help me. Empress Rong bit her lip, her eyes pleading, Bai Ling, that slut's daughter has actually come looking for me. Please, you have to help me. She's now receiving help from Zephyr Pavilion. If she finds out that I'm the one who killed Bai Ling, she definitely won't let the matter rest. Bai Su glanced at her evilly and said in a lukewarm tone, do you expect others to clean up after you caused this mess yourself? Where did you find the courage to kill Whitey? Why don't you continue to take it out? Empress Rong's heart sank. If Bai Su didn't help her, then she really wouldn't be able to escape this time. Who would have imagined that that stinking kid, Yi Ling, would actually be the vice pavilion master of the Windfall Pavilion? He really didn't know if the Windfall Pavilion's pavilion master was blind. How could he let an idiot like Yi Ling become the vice pavilion master? If anyone was to be the vice pavilion master, it should be her son. Young Master Bai, don't forget that your Bai family also participated in that incident. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to kill Bai Ling. Empress Rong hardened her heart. No matter what, she must drag the Bai family down with her. Bai Su's eyes darkened. Suddenly, he smiled. That smile was charming, causing one's heart to flutter. Chapter 200. Are you threatening me? The corners of his lips curled up dangerously as he leaned lazily against the back of his chair. He raised his brows evilly and said, Rong Xian, you seem to have forgotten something. You may be afraid of Zephyr Pavilion, but the Bai family is not afraid of anything. Also, don't forget that the royal family is only a dog under the Bai family. What right do you have to threaten me? Empress Rong's heart skipped a beat. How could she have forgotten that the Windfall Pavilion was a force no one dared to provoke? But against a colossus like the Bai family, no matter how strong the Windfall Pavilion was, it couldn't withstand a single blow. Young Master Bai, she was a little nervous and wanted to explain but was interrupted by the man's devilish voice. That girl, Bai Ling, also has the surname Bai. Unfortunately, she's not a member of the Bai family. I, Bai Su, have always been a flatterer. If I can't have someone, then no one else can either. That's why I helped you destroy Bai Ling. The man looked to be in his 20s at most, but he kept calling Bai Ling a girl. It sounded strange. But Bai Su paused and turned his devilish eyes to Empress Rong. You and Bai Ling really can't be compared. It's only natural that Chairman Yi likes her. But you, because of your jealousy, begged the Bai family to help you destroy her. Empress Rong's face paled. Her jealousy towards Bai Ling rose again. Everyone thought that she couldn't be compared to Bai Ling, but what else could Bai Ling do besides having a foxy face? Why did everyone praise her like that? She just couldn't stand that vixen. But that vixen was so persistent. She was already dead, yet she still allowed her daughter to appear here. Indeed, both mother and daughter were up to no good. No one was allowed to challenge her current position. Rong Xian, back then, the Bai family made Chairman Yi the Empress because you weren't smart enough. A smart woman can only end up like Empress Yi. Bai Su smiled wickedly. But I didn't expect you to be this stupid. Threatening him? No one had ever dared to threaten him in his life. As if Bai Su's mention of Empress Yi had reminded Rong Xian of the past, her face paled. She bit her pale lips and her eyes were filled with shame. To a force like the Bai family, the imperial family was nothing but a puppet. As a puppet, there was no need for intelligence. A clever puppet would only increase its master's disgust. That was why a smart woman like Empress Yi was stripped of her position as Empress by Chairman Yi. She lived in the cold palace and died of depression. But, young Master Bai, Empress Rong's eyes darted back and forth, that boy Yi Ling is very clever. The civil and military officials do not allow His Imperial Majesty to make Luo, the Crown Prince, and insist on supporting Yi Ling. This matter does not seem to be something that you should care about. Bai Su's eyes gradually turned cold as she replied lazily, remember, don't interfere in matters that you shouldn't. The Bai family does not need you to order us around. The man's voice was laced with murderous intent. Empress Rong was so frightened that her legs turned to jelly and she broke out in a cold sweat. She bit her lips and didn't make a sound. She was afraid that if she said another word, this terrifying man in front of her would immediately take her life. how about this? Let Chairman Yi settle the grudge between you and the Yun family of Long Yuan first. If you really can't resolve it, I'll send someone to help you. Baisu slowly stood up from his chair and glanced at Empress Rong with his devilish eyes. But I have a condition. You have to bring that girl Yun Luofeng to see me. I'm very interested in that girl. Chapter 201. That girl was much more interesting than her mother. Baisu gently stroked her chin with her slender fingers as a bewitching smile appeared on her face. Her eyes narrowed slightly as a glint of interest flashed across them. Empress Rong suppressed her anger and said respectfully, "Young Master Bai, don't worry. I will bring Yun Luofeng to you." Baisu could feel her anger and sneered, "I don't care how much you hate that girl. She's still useful to me. So, I don't want you to act on impulse. Otherwise, you know what I can do." Empress Rong's body trembled and she quickly suppressed her emotions. She lowered her eyes, "I don't dare, I hope you don't dare." Baisu's lips curved, "Empress Rong, remember what I said. If I find out that you have any intentions of betrayal, I will destroy the entire Flowing Gold Kingdom." Windfall Pavilion. On a soft couch, a young girl was resting with her eyes half closed. Suddenly, a commotion came from outside the door. Perhaps the noise had disturbed her rest. She looked displeased. She raised an eyebrow and asked, "What's going on? Why is it so noisy outside?" Pavilion Master, Fang Yu heard Yun Luofeng's question and quickly answered, "Your subordinate will go see who's causing trouble outside." Fang Yu was the newly promoted steward. Even though he was not as strong as Wu Zhong, he was smart and sensible. Yun Luofeng liked him a lot. "No need." Yun Luofeng sat up from the couch and gently curled the corner of his lips, "I'll go see for myself." Windfall Pavilion was not located in the bustling area of the imperial city, but there were still many people around. At this moment, the pedestrians on the street were standing far away to one side, pointing at the royal guards who had surrounded the Windfall Pavilion and discussing in low voices. Windfall Pavilion's power was only known to those in power. The common people at the bottom of the hierarchy had no idea of their power. In the eyes of these people, the royal family was the one in charge of the world. Therefore, they all guessed that Windfall Pavilion had committed a crime that caused the emperor to come personally to arrest them. In reality, a cowardly person like Director Yi was not willing to come to such a place. Unfortunately, young Master Bai had given the order first. No matter how timid he was, he had no choice but to personally capture him. Furthermore, he still had a sliver of confidence in his heart. He believed that his son would never lay a hand on him, his father. As he was thinking, Director Yi caught a glimpse of Yi Ling walking out of the Windfall Pavilion. He was overjoyed and coughed dryly. His expression was as stern as ever. "Linger, today, father came here in order to capture the enemy nation's spy, Yun Luofeng." This Yun Luofeng was audacious to the extreme. "You actually want to kill all the people of the Flowing Gold Country, including the innocent citizens. So, for the sake of the common people, I must take this woman down today. If you wish to incriminate someone, you can always find a pretext." As the emperor of the Flowing Gold Country, his words were absolute. The people of the world would never doubt him. As expected, when they heard Director Ye's words, the surrounding crowd was enraged. It was as if Yun Luofeng was a villain who killed without batting an eyelid. Who is this Yun Luofeng? They wanted to destroy the Flowing Gold Nation? He even planned to slaughter everyone in the Flowing Gold Nation? Is she afraid that countless wronged souls will come to settle the score with her at night? Chapter 202. It's a good thing that your Imperial Majesty discovered her plot. Otherwise, our entire nation's citizens would have suffered. This demon should be executed by 1,000 cuts. An example to others. Kill her, kill this demon. Anyone who invades the Flowing Gold Kingdom must die. Director Yi laughed icily in his heart as he listened to the crowd's cries. His cold eyes swept towards the indifferent Yi Ling as he spoke icily. "Did you hear that? So many people wanted her dead, which proved that she had indeed committed a heinous crime. Yi Ling, seeing that you're our son, we won't argue with you. Get out of the way." Yi Ling held back the enraged Qin Yan and glanced at Director Yi with disdain. What do you mean by that many people want her dead? That proves that she has committed a heinous crime? Isn't the reason why these people are so angry because of your framing? Imperial Father, I've never seen anyone as shameless as you. Chairman Ye's expression darkened. Yi Ling, is this how you talk to your father? However, you've committed treason and heresy. Imperial Father cannot reject you as his son. How about this, if you like this little girl next to you, Imperial Father will allow her to become your concubine. As for your princess consort, Imperial Father has decided for you. She will be Empress Rong's niece, Rong Yu. Yi Ling's body emitted a cold aura and her eyes were icy. You don't have to worry about this. I will only marry Qin Yan in this lifetime. As for Rong Yu, you can enjoy her for yourself. I won't fight with you over her. Impudence. Director Yi was enraged and glared fiercely at Yi Ling. You're a prince of the imperial family and the deputy leader of Windfall Pavilion. This woman is only Yun Luofeng's maidservant. You're willing to stoop so low as to marry a maidservant. You're deliberately embarrassing the imperial family. We will never allow this to happen. Also, don't think that we don't know that you've single-handedly built Windfall Pavilion. Rather than letting it fall into the hands of an outsider, why don't we take control of it? Director Ye's greedy expression was on full display as he spoke. He had been in deep thought for a long time over the past few days and had come to understand one thing. How could a father and son have an overnight grudge? No matter how unreasonable he was, Yi Ling had no choice but to listen to him with the word filial. Moreover, he had already investigated thoroughly over the past few days. His son had single-handedly built the Windfall Pavilion. As for the so-called pavilion master, he had never shown his face, and it was uncertain whether he existed or not. Therefore, it was not wrong for him to accept the Windfall Pavilion on his son's behalf. Who asked him to give birth to him? Suddenly, a chuckle rang out from within the pavilion. The chuckle seemed to be filled with ridicule, causing Chairman Ye's expression to change drastically. I didn't expect my Zephyr Pavilion to be so heavily targeted. Wu Zhong left, and now another one has come. You and Empress Rong are truly a married couple. You're exactly the same when it comes to seizing things. Wasn't that right? When Empress Rong went to the second prince's residence, she had also used this tone to order Yi Ling to hand over the residence. Now, it was the same for Director Yi. One was more shameless than the other. Yun Luofeng. Chairman Ye's expression sank when he saw the white-robed young woman step out of the door. He then ordered coldly, Men, take this woman away. The imperial guards joined their fists in obeisance and quickly walked towards Yun Luofeng. The young woman leaned lazily against the doorsill as she watched the approaching imperial guards. She could not help but curl the corners of her lips and an arrogant and unruly smile appeared on her lips. You want to take me away with just these people? Don't you think that you're overestimating your imperial guards? I'm afraid that the combined power of these people can't even compare to my maidservant. Chapter 203. Director Yi was enraged and a vicious light flashed in his eyes. Yun Luofeng, you're still young but your tone is very arrogant. You're actually claiming that a little servant girl can fight against the imperial family's imperial guards? Now, I'd like to see just how powerful this little servant girl is. Generally speaking, a little servant girl like Qin Yan would not have much power. Otherwise, she would not have been destined to serve others. This statement was not wrong. If Qin Yan had not met a master like Yun Luofeng, she would have spent her entire life at the lowest rung and would never have been able to climb to her current position. However, Qin Yan was also fortunate to have a master like Yun Luofeng who was willing to put in so much effort to nurture her. This meant that she was destined to have an extraordinary life. Ye Ling looked at the arrogant Director Yi and curled the corners of her lips into a disdainful angle. Her eyes were filled with disdain as if she was laughing at Director Ye's words. My lady, don't worry. Leave this to me. Qin Yan raised her delicate and pretty face and smiled at the imperial guards who were surrounding them. Then, she quickly unsheathed the long sword in her hand and with a flash, she charged into the royal guards. Blood dyed the entire courtyard of Luofeng Pavilion red, and it was as gorgeous as a blooming rose. Qing Yan's petite figure shuttled through a group of mighty men. As the blade in her hand rose and fell, a fountain of bright red blood sprayed out and splashed onto the little servant girl's jade-like face. At this moment, Qing Yan was no longer that delicate and adorable little girl. Her clean and efficient movements were just like a trained killer, cruel and merciless. Chairman Ye's complacent face froze in the wake of the young maidservant's outburst. His tightly clenched fists trembled slightly. His fierce gaze was like a sharp long sword as it shot straight at Qing Yan. Impossible. This is absolutely impossible. He pinched his palm fiercely and forced himself to calm down. However, no matter how hard he tried to control himself, his heart was still trembling incessantly. Qing Yan was only a little servant girl who served others. How could she possibly defeat the well-trained imperial guards? Furthermore, she had fought them all alone without showing any signs of weakness. All of you, stop. Chairman Yi could no longer hold it in when he saw the countless deaths of the royal guards. He let out a furious roar. His fragile heart seemed to be unable to withstand such a blow and almost collapsed. One by one, the imperial guards stopped moving and planned to retreat. However, Qing Yan didn't give them the chance to leave. It was as if she hadn't heard Director Ye's words. Her petite body was accompanied by a flash of sword light. In an instant, several imperial guards fell to the ground. I told you to stop, didn't you hear me? Chairman Yi couldn't suppress the rage in his heart. When he saw that Qing Yan didn't stop, he turned his fierce gaze towards Yun Luofeng. Yun Luofeng, tell your people to stop. Yun Luofeng leaned against the door railing. He lazily raised his eyes and smiled evilly. You should have known the consequences when you killed your way into the Windfall Pavilion. Now, if you want to leave this place, there is only one way, and that is to walk out sideways. In other words, she would not let them go unless they were dead and carried out of here. Little girl, when it's possible to let people go, one should forgive them. Aren't you going too far by doing this? Suddenly, an elderly voice rang out. It was accompanied by an amiable laughter that rang in everyone's ears. Chapter 204. Yun Luofeng raised her brows frivolously. She looked at the white-robed elder who had appeared out of thin air, and her lips curled into a demonic smile. Be lenient wherever possible. If I forgive him, who would forgive me? The white-robed elder was not angered by Yun Luofeng's words. His compassionate features carried a sense of sorrow, and his tone of voice was as kind as ever. Little girl, you're in the wrong here. No matter how many mistakes the imperial family has made, they still control the entire country. If you kill the emperor now, the people of the world will be plunged into misery and suffering. There will be countless deaths and injuries. I can't bear to see the people of the world suffer, so I'm trying to persuade you. If you insist on acting rashly, you will certainly suffer the pain of karmic fire and will never be reincarnated for the rest of your life. What you're saying is that the imperial family can be forgiven for their mistakes, but if I'm wrong, I should die. Yun Luofeng raised her brow and smiled icily at the white-robed elder. Little girl, your life alone cannot be compared to the lives of the people of the world. The white-robed elder shook his head and laughed bitterly. If you die, I will ask Chairman Yi to burn countless gold, silver, and treasures for you so that you won't have to worry about food or clothing in the underworld. However, Chairman Yi is different. No matter who is in the right or wrong, he cannot die. Yun Luofeng curled the corners of her lips and a haughty and unruly smile appeared on her peerlessly beautiful face. My life is more precious than anyone else's. Even if all the lives of the people of the world were added together, it would not be comparable to my life. 10 years ago, the members of the imperial family had hurt my mother. By Ling 10 years later, they want to take my life. I swear I won't rest until I kill him. Little girl, the evil in your heart is too heavy. If this goes on, not only will the people of the world be plunged into misery and suffering, you will also fall into the path of demons. The white-robed elder stared at Yun Luofeng with pity and spoke kindly. How about this? Come with me and acknowledge me as your master. I will dispel the evil in your heart. His tone may have been kind, but there was a faint sense of arrogance on his elderly face, as if it was Yun Luofeng's good fortune to have acknowledged him as her master. Yun Luofeng laughed icily. Not everyone in this world has the right to be my master. You're even more unworthy. If it was anyone else, Yun Luofeng would definitely be enraged after saying such arrogant words. However, this white-robed old man had a smile on his face from beginning to end, and his emotions did not fluctuate at all because of the young girl's words. Little girl, you've already developed a mental barrier, causing you to make a mistake in your decision. I know that you must be struggling in pain, hoping that I can pull you out of this quagmire, but the mental barrier in your heart is causing you to be unable to ask for help. Don't worry, since you've met me, Biyao, I won't leave you alone. Don't worry. Since you've run into me, I won't leave you alone. His gaze was filled with contempt, as if he was looking at an idiot. His master had rejected his request to take him in as a disciple, so he thought that his master had a mental barrier in her heart and that was why she had rejected him? Gu Luofeng, Yun thought. Little girl, I'm the only one who can help you in this world. Biyao smiled kindly. As long as you follow me, I'll make sure that you don't kill anymore. When will there be an end to revenge? I believe that no matter what kind of hatred it is, as long as you are willing to repay evil with kindness, your enemy will definitely be grateful to you. Isn't this faster than taking revenge? Yun Luofeng nodded in agreement. That's right, you're right. So, if I kill your parents and children, and have someone rape your wife, and you repay me with kindness, I will definitely be grateful to you. Revenge breeds revenge, when will it ever end? Am I right? Chapter 205. Biyao's elderly face finally froze. His chest rose and fell unsteadily. He took a deep breath with all his might to suppress the anger that was about to erupt. It looks like your demonic barrier is too deep for you to say such cruel things. Do you think that you can take lives as you please? Yun Luofeng raised the corners of his lips. Then my parents should die. Should I die as well? Why didn't you step forward to stop the royal family from plotting against my parents all those years ago? Now, I only want to avenge my parents, yet you keep saying that you should repay evil with good? Is this your so-called mercy? Biyao's voice immediately disappeared. His elderly features changed slightly and an almost undetectable cold light flashed across his eyes. Very soon, his gaze returned to its amiable state. He looked kindly at Yun Luofeng and said, "These two matters are different. Your parents were young generals. Dying on the battlefield is their final destination. Now, it's different. Your actions have shown contempt for life. How can I sit back and watch this happen? Yun Luofeng, leave this place with me now. I will save you." Biyao's face lifted into a gentle smile as if he was thinking of himself as the savior of the world. Yun Luofeng narrowed his eyes. What if I say no? Then I will have no choice but to kill you. Biyao shook his head. His eyes were filled with compassion. Of course, I don't want that to happen. Yun Luofeng laughed gently. His demonic laughter was filled with mockery as it slowly rang out in front of the now silent Zephyr Pavilion. When I want to kill someone, you claim that I have stepped onto the path of the devil and is extremely cruel. When you want to kill someone, you act as if it's only natural. Little girl, I have no other choice. If I kill you, I can save even more people. Therefore, when it comes down to it, I am also saving the world. Otherwise, if you had truly stepped onto the path of the devil, the world would certainly be plunged into misery and suffering. Biyao looked at Yun Luofeng and his eyes were filled with pity. Don't worry, after I kill you, I will become vegetarian and pray to Buddha for the rest of my life to atone for my sins. You mean that you can make up for my life by becoming vegetarian and praying to Buddha? Yun Luofeng raised the corners of his lips. I really don't know whether to call you fake mercy or hypocrisy. From the moment he saw the old man, Yun Luofeng had already seen through his true intentions. The benevolence he spoke of was from his own standpoint. For example, killing was the right thing to do. When others kill someone, they don't ask for the reason and just judge them to be wrong. This kind of person was not truly compassionate. He was just a hypocrite who talked about mercy all the time. You're really stubborn. Bai Si shook his head and sighed helplessly. Seeing that you're still young, I'll give you a chance and not kill you. However, this old man will cripple your strength so that you won't be able to kill anyone in the future. Chairman Yi was shocked. He quickly turned to look at Bai Si and said anxiously, Lady Bai Si, young Master Bai Su, before coming here, Bai Su had asked Empress Rong to warn Chairman Yi that Yun Luofeng must be brought to the Bai family to see him. If Bai Si turned Yun Luofeng into a cripple, she might not be able to explain herself to young Master Bai Su. Bai Si did not seem to hear Chairman Ye's words. The aura around his body was completely revealed. Under this powerful pressure, Chairman Ye's words seemed to be stuck in his throat and he was unable to speak. Feeling Bai Si's fierce aura, Yun Luofeng lowered his eyes and used soul telepathy to ask, Little Mo, what are the chances of defeating him? Chapter 206. After a moment of silence, a tender voice rang out from within his soul, Master, are you going to use that method to raise the strength of your soul again? However, even if you raise the strength of your soul, you only have a 50% chance of defeating him. 50%, huh? Yun Luofeng rubbed his chin as his eyes filled with determination. That's enough. Little Mo, help me raise the strength of my soul. As the young girl spoke, she no longer hid her aura. With a loud bang, it exploded like a monstrous ocean, surging violently. Beginner Earth Spirit? When she sensed the young girl's fierce aura, a trace of seriousness appeared in Bai Si's eyes as a sense of pity appeared on her elderly face. A genius who has already become an Earth Spirit at such a young age. If I could get rid of your evil aura, your future would definitely be smooth sailing. Bai Si laughed bitterly as she looked at Yun Luofeng with pity. Unfortunately, your evil aura is too strong. In order to prevent you from committing a monstrous slaughter, I can only cripple your powers. Little girl, don't hate me. I've done all of this for your own good. In other words, he had killed Yun Luofeng for Yun Luofeng's own good. As for her, not only did she not have the right to hate him, she should be thanking him. Otherwise, there would come a day when Yun Luofeng would become an existence despised by all, and receive everyone's scolding and humiliation. And he had stopped such a thing from happening. Was this not for Yun Luofeng's own good? Now I finally understand that shamelessness is also a kind of realm. Yun Luofeng raised the corners of his lips evilly as his pitch-black eyes landed on Bai Si. Unfortunately, this realm is not something that just anyone can reach. Today, I've really broadened my horizons. Bai Si's brows furrowed slightly. This girl was really stubborn. She did not listen to my earnest and well-meaning advice, so I can only cripple her powers. Little girl, you have the power of an earth spirit at such a young age. You do indeed have the right to be arrogant. However, you've forgotten that a genius will always be a genius. A genius who has yet to fully mature, anyone can make you fall. Yun Luofeng's lips curled up. Wanting to cripple my strength. I'm afraid it won't be that easy. Under the light breeze, the young girl's eyes were wild and unruly. The corners of her lips were raised in an unruly arc. Her black eyes stared straight at Bai Si, and there was no fear on her face. Ha ha ha. Bai Si laughed out loud, if that's the case, then I'll show you my strength. They were both earth spirits, but this girl was only a low-level earth spirit, while he was already a high-level earth spirit. The difference of 2 levels was a ravine that she couldn't cross. She was destined to be unable to surpass it. Boom! A strong gust of wind from her palm followed Bai Si's sudden advance. The gust of wind was like a knife, causing pain to the faces of those around her. It was like a huge fist was smashing towards Yun Luofeng's chest. Bang! Yun Luofeng raised her hand and met Bai Si's fist. She took 2 steps back and blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. An evil light shone in her pitch-black eyes. If you want me to die, I'll definitely drag you down with me. Yun Luofeng wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. She turned around and pulled out her long sword from Yiling's hand. Her white robes fluttered in the light breeze. She was like a snowflake blooming in the sky, proud and cold. She was so beautiful that no one could look away. Miss. Qin Yan's eyes were filled with anxiety. Her heart was beating rapidly and her bright black eyes were filled with worry. She bit her lip and looked at Yun Luofeng. Chapter 207. Qing Yan, stand down with Yiling. Without my order, no one is allowed to come forward. The young girl held her long sword and an insolent light flashed across her pitch-black eyes. By I, Yun Luofeng, have always acted with a clear conscience. I have never wronged anyone. Similarly, I am not a pushover that anyone can bully. If you want to kill me, you must be prepared to be bitten by me. Bai Si's eyes narrowed slightly and a murderous aura was released from her body without reservation. Her figure was like an unsheathed longsword, cutting through the air and creating a shower of sparks. Little girl, I had only wanted to cripple your powers so that you would never be able to cultivate for the rest of your life. Since you want to die, I will fulfill your wish. Bai Si's speed was so fast that Yun Luofeng had no time to prepare himself. Fortunately, at the crucial moment, she had used the power of her soul to attack Bai Si's mind, causing him to be momentarily dazed. However, Bai Si was not Jing Lin after all and their powers were worlds apart. As such, Yun Luofeng's soul attack only caused him to be dazed for a second before he quickly recovered. His attacks became even fiercer and a murderous glint appeared in his eyes. Fortunately, Yun Luofeng's soul attack had bought her some time. Even if it was only for a second, it was enough for her to use the long sword in her hand to block the other's irresistible attack. Bang! The fist landed fiercely on the long sword. The crowd heard a loud crack and the sword in Yun Luofeng's hand broke into two. It slowly fell to the ground with a crisp sound. The young girl took 2 steps back. Her hand gently clutched her chest and her dark eyes were filled with seriousness. Little girl, let me ask you, do you still want revenge? Bai Si's eyes were filled with sorrow. Even though Empress Rong had killed your birth parents that year, it has been so many years since that incident. Why are you still so persistent? Empress Rong? As expected, it was Empress Rong. Having finally obtained the answer he wanted, Yun Luofeng curled the corners of his lips and smiled evilly. Wait until I've killed your parents and child. You can say such things again. Perhaps I might even believe you then. Looks like you really can't be saved. Bai Si shook her head and said faintly, if that's the case, I'll kill you now to prevent you from suffering in the future. After saying this, Bai Si's figure had already appeared in front of Yun Luofeng. She was like a ghostly shadow, so fast that her movements were erratic. Girl, do you have any last words? Yun Luofeng laughed softly. She threw the sword hilt in her hand onto the ground. The corners of her lips curled up slightly, and the murderous intent in her evil eyes intensified. Yiling silently walked in front of Yun Luofeng and stood in front of her. His handsome face was filled with the determination to face death with equanimity. Yiling, move aside. Chairman Ye's expression changed and he shouted sternly, this has nothing to do with you. Get lost. Yiling looked at Director Yi expressionlessly and said coldly, if you want to kill her, you'll have to do it over my dead body. Yiling. Director Yi was enraged and his eyes were filled with a fiery rage. He really could not understand what was so good about Yun Luofeng that his son would protect her so much. Even if he had taken a liking to Yun Luofeng's maidservant, there was no need for him to throw his life away for Yun Luofeng's sake. Yiling, Yun Luofeng looked at the handsome youth in front of her and said, move aside. I, Yun Luofeng, will not be defeated so easily. Chapter 208. Yiling was startled. After a moment of silence, she finally stepped aside from Yun Luofeng. He should believe in her, shouldn't he? Based on her master's power, as long as she said she would do it. She would not fight a battle she was not confident in. Little girl, Bai Si, have known many people, but I've never seen anyone like you who likes to show off. The corners of Bai Si's lips curled into a faint smile. Her kind gaze carried a hint of condescension as she spoke in a stiff tone, if you were willing to admit defeat, I might have only crippled your strength. But now, I understand that if I don't kill you, there will definitely be future troubles. So, you can only die. There was a loud rumble and Bai Si's figure shot into the sky like a long sword. His fist was like a falling meteorite as it streaked across the sky and fell towards Yun Luofeng. Fast. Too fast. Yun Luofeng narrowed his eyes and looked at the elderly figure who was charging towards him like lightning. She hurriedly retreated. However, her reaction was too slow. As a result, the old man's fist landed on her chest. Instantly, she quickly moved backwards and left a long mark on the ground. Is this all an advanced earth spiritualist has? Yun Luofeng wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and raised his head to look at Bai Si. His eyes exuded a strong sense of confidence. This bit of power of yours is completely harmless. Bai Si narrowed his eyes and a cold light flashed across his eyes. He scoffed and appeared in front of Yun Luofeng once again in his snow-white robes. This time, Yun Luofeng did not wait for him to make the first move. Instead, he attacked first. She flicked her finger and a tiny silver needle streaked across the sky. It made a sizzling sound as it quickly shot towards Bai Si's head. A sense of mockery flashed in Bai Si's eyes. He waved his hand and caught the flying silver needle. He sneered and said, Yun Luofeng, I didn't think that this is all you've got. You can't defeat me, so you plan on using a hidden weapon to hurt me? What a joke. It seems that you've only ever had a glib tongue and have no real ability at all. He really did not understand how this little girl had the right to look down on him with her power. Really? Yun Luofeng wiped the sweat off his face. The corners of his lips curled into an evil smile. Bai Si, your biggest weakness is that you are too confident in yourself. What? Bai Si was stunned. Just as he was about to say something, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his palm. When he came to his senses, he found that the silver needle in his hand suddenly seemed to have a life of its own as it drilled into his palm. Yun Luofeng was right. He was indeed overconfident. He believed that even if Yun Luofeng poisoned the needle, he would still have a way to detoxify it. That was why he dared to grab the needle with his bare hands. Who knew that the silver needle would actually drill into his palm? Moreover, the entire needle had sunk into his palm, leaving only a small black dot on his palm to explain what had just happened. Yun Luofeng, you are truly despicable and sinister. You actually dare to use concealed weapons to injure others. Feeling the piercing pain in her palm, Bai Si no longer cared about her disguise. She glared fiercely at Yun Luofeng with eyes full of anger. You finally stopped pretending? Yun Luofeng's lips curled into a smile. I had thought that you would always pretend to be merciful and compassionate. You've finally lost control? That's right, I, Yun Luofeng, am indeed despicable and sinister, cunning and shameless. But so what? The winner takes all. No matter what method I used, at least I've injured you. Chapter 209. From the very beginning, Yun Luofeng had created an illusion for Bai Si. That illusion was that she was so weak that she could not withstand a single blow and did not even have the chance to fight back. It was because of this illusion that Bai Si had been so careless. Boom! A wave of anger rushed to the top of Bai Si's head. Her face instantly darkened and she looked like a completely different person from the amiable old man from before. The crowd sighed incessantly. In the beginning, they had thought that Bai Si was a kind old man. They never thought that this old man would become angry and have such a malevolent look on his face. Yun Luofeng, you're digging your own grave. I'll fulfill your wish. Bai Si gritted her teeth hatefully. Her face was as malevolent as a wild beast's as she charged ferociously towards the young woman in white. His entire body's aura surged into his fist. His fist felt as if it weighed 1,000 kilograms and even the air around him became heavy. One could imagine what would happen if this fist were to land on Yun Luofeng's body. This young woman's frail body would certainly have a bloody hole punched through it. Perhaps even her internal organs would be ruptured. The young woman's lips curled into a demonic angle as she stood in the midst of the strong wind caused by the fist. Her robes were as white as snow as her pitch-black eyes stared silently at Bai Si's fist which was about to land in front of her. However, she did not dodge. Instead, she faced her opponent's fist head-on. The crowd was so shocked by this thrilling scene that their hearts stopped for a moment. Some of them even closed their eyes, unable to bear to see such a beautiful, picturesque young woman's blood splattered on the spot. Is this woman an idiot? Even if she's quite talented, she's only a beginner-level earth spirit. She's actually going head-on against a middle-level cultivator. Isn't she digging her own grave? As expected, under Bai Si's powerful fist, Yun Luofeng's body was sent flying out of the way and fell into the crowd behind him. My lady. Qin Yen turned pale with fright and quickly leaped forward to catch the young woman's body in the air. Her delicate features were filled with anxiety. Yun Luofeng spat out a mouthful of blood and felt a burning pain in her chest. She wiped the blood from her chin, but the more she wiped, the more she vomited. She could not stop it no matter what she did. Miss, are you all right? Qin Yen was so anxious that she was about to cry. She held Yun Luofeng tightly, fearing that the young girl would fall if she let go. Yun Luofeng shook her head. She was so weak that she didn't even have the strength to open her mouth. At a time like this, she couldn't care less. She took out a spirit herb from the divine grimoire and swallowed it. Ah! Suddenly, a shrill cry rang out, causing the people who had been staring at Yun Luofeng to instantly turn their gazes towards Bai Si. Bai Si retreated a few steps, her face ashen. She roared angrily, "What did you do to me?" Several blue veins bulged on his arms, as if there were countless worms wandering in his arms. The blue veins covered his entire arm, making him look hideous and terrifying. Yun Luofeng wiped the blood from his mouth and slowly straightened his body. He curled his lips and smiled evilly. I've said it before, it's not that easy to kill me. Even if I can't kill you now, I'll cut off one of your arms. I, Yun Luofeng, will suffer from anything but losses. Just as Bai Si's fist was about to land on her, she had used her spiritual attack to make him momentarily dazed. She then hid the silver needle in front of her chest as fast as she could. This also meant that Bai Si's fist had landed on the silver needle, causing it to stab into the back of his hand. Chapter 210. As for why Yun Luofeng had not done this in the beginning, that was because she needed time to merge the power of her soul into the silver needles. Otherwise, ordinary silver needles would not have been able to harm Bai Si's foundation. Bai Si's expression finally changed when she saw that the veins on her arms were increasing and gradually spreading toward her shoulders. He took a deep breath and pulled out a long sword from the hand of a nearby imperial guard. He then slashed at her arm without hesitation. Splatter. Blood splattered and the intense pain caused Bai Si's face to turn pale. He staggered and forcefully stabbed the long sword in his hand into the ground to support his trembling body. The crowd gasped as they stared at the pool of blood in front of Bai Si. How much courage does one need to have for someone to be so cruel as to cut off his own arm? Yun Luofeng. Bai Si slowly turned her gaze towards Yun Luofeng. Her face was filled with malevolence as if she had used all the strength in her body to curse, "You've killed too many people. You will certainly die a horrible death." Yun Luofeng curled his lips into a smile. "You had cut off your own arm. It has nothing to do with me. Besides, don't make yourself sound so innocent. On this mainland, who is clean and has never been stained with blood? Have you not killed a single person? You." Bai Si was exasperated, "You're twisting words and forcing logic." Perhaps it was because he had lost too much blood, but his voice was very weak. Even his breathing seemed as if it would stop at any time. All of a sudden, a devilish laughter rang out in the sky. The laughter was filled with a hint of flattery as it slowly rang out, as expected of Bai Ling's daughter. "You're so different from the masses. However, you're much more interesting than your mother." Yun Luofeng gently furrowed her brows and raised her head to look at the man in the sky. When she saw the man, a dangerous light flashed in her narrowed eyes. All she saw was a peerlessly handsome man standing in the dusky sky. He stood in the air like a god who had descended to the mortal realm. His fluttering purple robes exuded a noble aura which made it hard for anyone to look at him directly. However, with just one look, Yun Luofeng could sense that this man was an extremely dangerous person. It should be said that he was more dangerous than anyone she had ever met. "Do you know my mother?" Yun Luofeng pondered for a moment before asking. The corners of Bai Su's lips curled into a devilish smile. You want to know about your mother? If you come with me, I might tell you. Yun Luofeng smiled coldly. If you want me to go with you, then you must give me a reason. The man smiled evilly. His slender fingers gently stroked his chin as he sized up Yun Luofeng with a slightly interested gaze. Reason? I'm very interested in you. Is this reason enough? I'm sorry, Yun Luofeng looked at the man, I'm not interested in you, so this reason isn't enough. The young girl's words did not make the man angry. Instead, the evil smile on his handsome face deepened. Yun girl, could it be that you haven't realized that we are the same kind of people? If the two of us join forces, I believe that in time, this continent will belong to us. What if I refuse? Then I can't guarantee what I can do. You're very talented. If I were to destroy you, I would feel that it would be a pity. Furthermore, he was indeed very interested in this lass. So, no matter what, he had to win her over. Chapter 211. Young master, this little girl is stubborn. There's no point in talking to her. Bai Si pressed down on his bleeding arm. His elderly face was pale and his hatred for Yun Luofeng grew even deeper. Bai Su did not even look at the old man. His lips curled into an evil smile and his body moved like a gentle breeze as he suddenly appeared in front of Yun Luofeng. A powerful pressure pressed down like a mountain, causing Yun Luofeng's body to stiffen. She wanted to resist but she could not muster any strength. Although she did not use too many moves to deal with Bai Si just now. In reality, her body was very weak because she had used too much of her soul's power. Bai Su glanced at Yun Luofeng and the corners of his lips curled into an angle. An even more powerful pressure was unleashed and pressed down on Yun Luofeng's body once again, hoping to force her to kneel. The young girl's knees trembled uncontrollably. Under this powerful pressure, she felt that her legs could not withstand the power. But, even though her bones were cracking from the pressure, she did not let her knees bend. Her back was straight and her pitch-black eyes were filled with determination. Little girl, you're not bad. Bai Su looked at Yun Luofeng with admiration. However, he did not withdraw his power. Instead, he made his coercion even stronger. However, I'd like to see how long you can endure. This little girl has a very stubborn personality. If he does not subdue her now, it would be very difficult for him to use her in the future. Bai Su unleashed all the power in his body and pressed it all down on Yun Luofeng's body. If it had been anyone else, they would have been crushed to the ground by his coercion long ago. However, Yun Luofeng was still holding on bitterly. Even so, her knees were trembling more and more violently, and they were gradually bending. Qing Yan and Yi Ling's eyes filled with anxiety as they stared at Yun Luofeng's sweaty back. However, when Bai Su had unleashed his coercion on Yun Luofeng, some of the remaining pressure had spread outwards. This residual pressure had caused their bodies to be unable to move. They could only watch helplessly as Yun Luofeng held on under such a powerful coercion. Yun Luofeng's body could not hold on any longer. Her snow-white face was covered in sweat and her clothes were soaked in sweat, clinging tightly to her body. Yun Xiao, she gently closed her eyes as the corners of her lips curled into a smile. She murmured softly. Yun Xiao. When the crowd heard her murmur those two words, they were all stunned. They did not understand who this Yun Xiao she was talking about was. At this moment, a sharp aura suddenly attacked. Then, a black figure rushed over like a nighthawk, stirring up a gust of wind on the entire street. Quick! This speed was too fast. He was like a gust of wind, and by the time everyone recovered their senses, he was already in front of Yun Luofeng. At this moment, Yun Luofeng, who was falling to the ground, suddenly felt an arm reach out from behind her. Then, her body fell into a warm embrace. She could feel the man's broad chest as a smile appeared on her beautiful face. Yun Xiao, I knew you'd come. After being together for half a year, she was already extremely familiar with this man's aura. Hence, at that moment, she had sensed the man's aura. Hence, she had relaxed and allowed her body to fall to the ground. I'm too late. The man gently pursed his thin lips as his black robes fluttered in the wind. He held the young girl in his arms tightly as a murderous intent emanated from his entire body. Chapter 212. He had only left for a few days because he had some matters to attend to. Who would have thought that when he arrived, he would see Yun Luofeng being bullied? Yun Xiao did not dare to imagine what would have happened if he had arrived a moment later. You deserve to die. The man's cold eyes slowly shifted away from Yun Luofeng and turned towards Bai Su. Those who bully her deserve to die. Bai Su stared at the man who had appeared next to Yun Luofeng, and a strange light flashed across his demonic eyes. It seems that I'm not the only one who has the foresight to fancy her. You're the same. Unfortunately, Bai Su, will never give way to anyone I fancy. Yun Xiao slowly placed Yun Luofeng on the ground and glanced expressionlessly at Qin Yan. Take care of her. Then, he turned to look at Bai Su. At this moment, his aura was like a sword and his cold, black eyes were filled with endless murderous intent. No one can hurt her. I'd like to see how powerful the famous Ghost Emperor is. Bai Su curled his lips into a smile and looked at Yun Xiao with a relaxed expression. He did not show any fear because of the other's identity. Instead, Yun Xiao's appearance had made him even more interested in Yun Luofeng. The Ghost Emperor? Director Ye's body trembled and a trace of fear appeared in his eyes. He could not help but take a few steps back as his eyes darted around to think of a countermeasure. This terrifying black-robed man was the rumored inhumane Ghost Emperor? Heavens, Yun Luofeng was acquainted with the Ghost Emperor? Furthermore, it seemed that their relationship was not ordinary. Yet, he wanted to capture the Ghost Emperor's people? Boom! Bai Su met Yun Xiao's attack head-on in the sky. The moment their fists collided, a powerful force surged from their bodies, destroying all the trees in the surroundings. Even the ground on the street was blasted into a huge pit. Bai Su retreated and only stopped after a long while. He looked at the man who was as cold as a deity and his lips curled into a demonic smile. The Ghost Emperor's power is indeed not to be underestimated. I've finally experienced it today. Today, Bai Su, will take my leave first. I'll seek your advice another day. Yun Xiao's expression darkened when he saw Bai Su turn and leave. Just as he was about to give chase, a violent aura suddenly appeared from the side. Young master, leave quickly. Bai Ci roared at the departing Bai Su. The violent energy within his body grew stronger and his entire body expanded like a rubber ball. His malevolent face looked as if he was facing death with equanimity. If Yun Xiao chased after Bai Su, she would definitely not be able to stop Bai Ci's self-destruction. Yun Luofeng, who could no longer move, would definitely be heavily injured by this explosion. It wasn't that Yun Xiao couldn't distinguish which was more important. His tall figure appeared in front of Bai Ci and lifted the old man's body in his hands. He said coldly, since you want to self-destruct, I'll help you. Boom! A powerful force suddenly rushed into the old man's body, dispersing his own strength. Not long after, his body cracked open and blood slowly flowed down his skin. Ah! With this shrill cry, the old man's body exploded like a rubber ball, turning into a mist of blood. Hence, the entire street regained its peace. Yun Xiao threw the old man's clothes on the ground and turned towards Yun Luofeng. I've injured him and he needs to recuperate for a long time. He won't be able to cause trouble for you during this time. I'll send someone after him. Chapter 213. Yun Luofeng raised her head and met the man's grim eyes. Her lips curled into a smile. Yun Xiao, I'm tired. Carry me back to rest. All right. Yun Xiao walked towards Yun Luofeng and bent down to carry the young girl by the waist. She then strode into the Windfall Pavilion. Chairman Yi finally returned to his senses as he watched the two leave. His face turned pale and his eyes darted around. My son, you know the Ghost Emperor? Yi Ling scoffed icily. His handsome features were filled with cold arrogance. I don't know the Ghost Emperor, I only know her. The her that Yi Ling was referring to was naturally Yun Luofeng. My son, Chairman Ye's face turned even paler. I didn't have any interest in Yun Luo. Miss Yun. I was only following the Bai family's orders. On account that Imperial Father gave birth to you, please plead for mercy on my behalf. The others present may not have heard of the Ghost Emperor, but he was the emperor of a country. How could he not know of the Ghost Emperor's existence? Hence, when he heard that Yun Shao was the Ghost Emperor, he was scared out of his wits. Plead for mercy? That's easy for you to say. Not only do you want to capture her, you want to take away her power, and now you want me to plead for mercy on your behalf? Yi Ling curled the corners of his lips mockingly as he spoke in a cold voice. What? Chairman Yi was stunned and asked in confusion, My son, what are you talking about? When did I ever want to take away her power? I only... Before he could finish his sentence, he was interrupted by the youth's cold voice. I forgot to tell you, the Windfall Pavilion is her power. I'm only working for her. She's the real pavilion master of the Windfall Pavilion. Windfall Pavilion? Yun Luofeng? Like a bolt from the blue, Chairman Yi staggered and fell to the ground, unable to withstand the blow. Why hadn't he thought of it in the first place? Wasn't the Windfall Pavilion named after Yun Luofeng? Yet he had foolishly failed to connect her with the Windfall Pavilion. She had even tried to take away the entire Windfall Pavilion right in front of the Pavilion Master. A wave of sorrow welled up in his heart at the thought of this, causing his face to turn pale and ashen. Yi Ling glanced at Chairman Yi and spoke coldly, I only want to tell you one thing, you won't die if you don't court disaster. You've brought this upon yourself, you can't blame anyone. In the forest, the purple-robed man descended from the sky. He held on to an ancient tree beside him and spat out a mouthful of blood. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and raised his demonic eyes slightly. He looked at the sky not far away and his lips curled into a cold smile. I've really underestimated that girl, Yun Luofeng. To think that she could enter the Ghost Emperor's eyes. This Ghost Emperor is even more powerful than I imagined. That palm strike just now nearly shattered my internal organs. If not for Bai Si's sacrifice, he might not have been able to escape successfully. One day, I will repay you for the humiliation I suffered today. In the inner courtyard of the Imperial Palace. In a luxurious palace, Empress Rong was lying gracefully on a soft mattress. A smile hung on her dignified face and her brows were filled with complacency. Bai Ling, if you die in my hands, your daughter won't be any better. Especially since your mother and daughter's personalities are too similar. You'd rather die in glory than live in disgrace. Therefore, I believe that Yun Luofeng will definitely not leave with the Bai family's experts. Chapter 214. Empress Rong lowered her eyelids, the smile on her lips deepening. The members of the Bai family would never let others have what they couldn't have. If Yun Luofeng refused to leave with the Bai family, death would be the only fate that awaited her. Ha ha ha. As if she could already see Yun Luofeng's blood splattered all over the place, Empress Rong laughed as if there was no one else present. Her expression was extremely malevolent and her dignified demeanor had long since disappeared. Your Highness, Your Highness. Suddenly, a hurried voice was heard. Then, a palace maid hurried into the palace, panting. How is it? Empress Rong sat up excitedly. Is that little slut Yun Luofeng dead? In order to learn of Yun Luofeng's tragic state, Empress Rong had specially sent her trusted palace maid to observe the situation. Her goal was to vividly describe Yun Luofeng's fate to her. When she heard Empress Rong's words, the palace maid was startled. She carefully glanced at Empress Rong and said, Your Highness, that Yun Luofeng is a low-level earth spiritualist, and he even risked his life to cripple Lady Bai Si's arm. What did you say? Empress Rong's expression changed greatly and her eyes flashed with malice. Are you sure you're not lying to me? Yun Luofeng was a low-level earth spirit? And defeated Lady Bai Si? That was impossible. How could that little slut's talent be that strong? Your Highness, it's true. Furthermore, after Yun Luofeng defeated Lady Bai Si, young Master Bai Su also appeared. This palace maid had always been trusted by Empress Rong and knew a little about the Bai family. However, she didn't know much and didn't know that the entire royal family was controlled by the Bai family. Young Master Bai Su appeared. Empress Rong's eyes flashed with joy. Was Yun Luofeng killed by young Master Bai Su? The palace maid shook her head and replied timidly, Your ladyship, Yun Luofeng was originally going to die for sure. Who would have guessed that a man whom young Master Bai Su calls the Ghost Emperor would suddenly appear and chase young Master Bai Su away? Furthermore, Yun Luofeng is the pavilion master of the Windfall Pavilion. The palace maid didn't know the identity of the Ghost Emperor, but Empress Rong had heard Director Yi mention him before. It was said that the Ghost Emperor was extremely powerful and bloodthirsty. Anyone who provoked him was the same as provoking the devil. That was why he was called the Ghost Emperor. What shocked Empress Rong even more was that Yun Luofeng was actually the pavilion master of the Windfall Pavilion. What was laughable was that she had wanted to make Yun Luofeng his concubine in order to curry favor with the steward of the Windfall Pavilion. He even claimed that Yun Luofeng would marry Wu Zhong for the sake of power. Who would have thought that she would be the pavilion master of Drifting Wind Pavilion? No wonder she did not put Wu Zhong in her eyes at that time. As if recalling the words she had said that day, Empress Rong's body trembled. She closed her eyes, despair written all over her face. Your Highness, something bad has happened? Just as Empress Rong was about to close her eyes, a figure rushed into the palace in a hurry and said anxiously, The Emperor has been captured. The third prince has led a group of people into the palace, saying that he wants to avenge young General Yun and his wife. What? Empress Rong hurriedly opened her eyes, anxiety written all over her face. Where's Luo, Where's Luo, The second prince wanted to escape when he heard the news, but he was captured by the third prince's men. Chapter 2:15. Empress Rong's legs gave way and she fell to the ground. Her face was deathly pale and her eyes stared out of the palace in despair. It's over. This time, she's completely done for. Outside the palace, a hubbub of voices could be heard. After a while, a handsome and aloof youth led a group of people into the palace. He waved his hand and ordered indifferently, Men, take Empress Rong and her people. No. Empress Rong finally regained her senses when she saw the murderous men approaching her. She screamed, Let me go. I am the Empress of the nation, the mother of the world. If you dare to violate me, I will exterminate your entire family. Her beautiful hair draped over her shoulders and fell over her face. She looked like a madwoman as she glared fiercely at the guards. Her expression was one of insanity. Take her away. Yi Ling coldly ordered. From beginning to end, he didn't even look at Empress Rong. Yi Ling, you little bastard, you little bastard. If I had known this would happen, would have killed you all those years ago and sent you to accompany your mother in the underworld. But I didn't kill you in the end. Not only did you not thank me for sparing your life, you even dared to help others harm me. You're worse than a pig or a dog, an ingrate. Empress Rong struggled with all her might. Her face was filled with hatred. Little bastard, you shouldn't be living in this world. You should have died a long time ago. Yi Ling's eyes darkened. He stared at Empress Rong, who was struggling against the guards, and his handsome face curled into a cold smile. Empress Rong, the heavens are watching. You deserve today's retribution. However, I need to think about how to deal with you. Should I chop you into 8 pieces or feed you to the wolves? Or should I torture you to death? Every time Yi Ling mentioned a punishment, Empress Rong's body would tremble uncontrollably. She finally felt fear and fiercely pushed away the guards who were holding her. No. I was wrong, I've learned my lesson. Yi Ling, please forgive me this time on account of the fact that I didn't kill you. I promise I won't do it again. Yi Ling curled the corners of his lips and stared mockingly at Empress Rong's pale face. You mean to say that I should thank you for sparing my life? It's a pity that I'm only working for someone else. Men, drag her away for this prince and execute her by 1,000 cuts. No. A shrill cry rang through the entire palace. However, no matter how hard she resisted, she was still dragged out of the palace by 2 guards. News of what had happened in the flowing gold kingdom's imperial palace had spread like wildfire throughout the entire imperial city. Moreover, due to the emperor's mishap and the empress's capture, the princes fought endlessly for the throne. In the end, it was General Yi who led the army to hold down the fort in the imperial palace that the rebellion was stopped. Even so, when the citizens of the flowing gold kingdom found out that it was Yun Luofeng who had plunged the capital into chaos, they surrounded the windfall pavilion early in the morning. No one knew who started it, but the others also started to clamor. Yun Luofeng, Yi Ling, you two traitors who plotted against His Majesty, get out here. That woman Bai Ling is a femme fatale. She is the culprit behind everything. If it wasn't for her, the two countries wouldn't have gone to war. There wouldn't have been so many casualties. For these people who thought that the continent was controlled by men, all the wrongs should be shouldered by women. Chapter 2:16. If His Majesty had not taken a liking to Bai Ling, there would not have been a war between the two countries 10 years ago. That woman was a femme fatale. All the casualties were caused by her. Her daughter had to live on with the lives of these people. What right did she have to avenge Bai Ling? His Majesty was not wrong, Bai Ling was the one who was wrong. Who asked His Majesty to take a liking to her? If she had obediently become His Majesty's concubine, there would not have been so many casualties. The people who had lost their loved ones in the war were even more furious. They could not wait to kill Yun Luofeng to avenge their loved ones. Femme fatale? Suddenly, a light laugh rang out from behind them. When everyone turned their heads to look, they suddenly realized that Yun Luofeng had appeared behind them at some point in time. The young girl's robes were as white as snow and the corners of her lips curled into a devilish angle. A cold light flashed in her eyes as her pitch-black eyes stared coldly at the crowd surrounding the windfall pavilion. Yun Luofeng, you finally dared to show yourself. I thought you only knew how to be a coward. A cold chuckle came from the crowd. Yun Luofeng turned to look at the person who had spoken and raised her eyebrows. Were you the one who said femme fatale? That's right, Bai Ling is a femme fatale. If it were not for her, there would not have been so many deaths on the battlefield. Yun Luofeng chuckled. Her smile was filled with murderous intent as she slowly walked towards the person in the crowd. As far as I know, it was Director Ye's lust that caused the war between the two countries. But now, you say that she is a femme fatale? Humph. His Majesty is the ruler of a country, he can't be wrong. Moreover, if it were not for Bai Ling, he would not have allowed the two countries to go to war. So, as Bai Ling's daughter, you should kneel down and apologize to those who died on the battlefield on her behalf. In this mainland, although women could also learn literature and martial arts, the ones in power were mostly men. Since men were the ones in power, how could they admit that men could make mistakes? Even if it was because of their own lust that caused the war, they would only compare women to femme fatale. Yun Luofeng felt that it was ridiculous. These men in power only knew how to shirk their responsibilities. Director Yi is muddle-headed and perverted. Because of his own selfish desires, he started a war with the Long Yuan nation. But all of you think that it was my mother who did the wrong thing. What did my mother do wrong? She was persecuted by the incapable emperor and her soul returned to the battlefield. What's wrong with me coming to avenge her? What does it have to do with me no matter how many lives die in the world? So what if there were more casualties in a war between two countries? I don't care how many people from your flowing gold nation have died. I only know that those who harmed my parents, I will definitely send them to the underworld to atone for their crimes. The young girl's eyes were wild and unruly. Her snow-white dress fluttered in the wind, showing off her domineering aura. If any of you say that she's a femme fatale again, I, Yun Luofeng, don't mind using fresh blood to wash away the windfall pavilion's reputation. She would never allow anyone to insult her parents. Ha ha ha, laughable, truly laughable. Yun Luofeng, we are just a group of ordinary citizens who have come to denounce the demoness. As an expert, could it be that you want to make a move against ordinary citizens like us? Aren't you afraid of making a fool of yourself? This was the reason why they dared to provoke Yun Luofeng. After all, Yun Luofeng had already broken through to the Earth's spiritual realm and was born into a general's family. Would she really make a move against a group of ordinary citizens? If she really made a move, the whole world would laugh at her. Chapter 217. Yun Luofeng, if Bai Ling hadn't bewitched His Majesty wouldn't have gone to war with Long Yuan country. Hence, you must kneel down and kowtow 1,000 times to the souls of flowing gold country. And release His Majesty and the Empress. They're not at fault, only Bai Ling is at fault. That's right. Release His Majesty and the Empress, you have no right to imprison them. Among these people, the two young men were the happiest. Their righteous tone made it seem as if Bai Ling and Yun Luofeng were evil scoundrels. As for Director Yi and Empress Rong, who were imprisoned by her, they were the good guys. Yun Luofeng's lips curled up as she walked towards the young man who was clamoring. Her eyes were filled with a dangerous light. I've said it before, don't let me hear another word that insults her, or else. Boom! A punch landed on the young man's chest. Before the young man could even react, his body was sent flying and slammed into the door. Or else, this will be your end. The young man spat out a mouthful of blood and glared angrily at Yun Luofeng. Yun Luofeng, you won't have a good ending. You will enter the 18 levels of hell, never to be reincarnated. If hell really exists, I, Yun Luofeng, would really like to explore it. Yun Luofeng glanced sideways at the young man who had fallen to the ground and laughed coldly. Unfortunately, even hell doesn't dare to take me in. You. The young man pointed at Yun Luofeng angrily, his face ashen. Yun Luofeng, you demonic woman, one day, you will offend the righteous people of the mainland. They will punish you on behalf of the heavens. I'd like to know if they have the ability to do so. Yun Luofeng's lips curled up slightly and she ordered the people of Windfall Pavilion, pass down my order. Whoever insults my parents again will be killed without mercy. Even if blood stains the imperial city, I will make sure that no one dares to say another word about her. Yes, Pavilion Master. Everyone cupped their fists and replied respectfully. Blood stains the imperial city, these 4 words were not just for show. In a short period of time, Windfall Pavilion had swept through the entire imperial city like a sudden clap of thunder. All the voices insulting Whitey as a femme fatale disappeared. And those who thought that Yun Luofeng would not give up the dignity of an expert and attack them because they were ordinary citizens, they suffered the consequences of their own actions. In the elegant room, the fragrance of sandalwood slowly rose. The girl stood in front of the window, her white robes shrouded in a thin layer of light under the moonlight. She gazed at the dark night outside the house, her pitch-black eyes filled with contemplation. Yun Xiao, do you think I'm wrong? The man standing behind the girl heard her words and replied coldly, you can't be wrong. No matter what she did, it would never be wrong. What if everyone in the world thinks I'm wrong? The young girl slowly turned around and her black eyes stared at the man's handsome face. Her lips curled into a smile. Yun Xiao paused for a moment. You won't be wrong. If everyone in the world thinks that you're wrong, then no one will say that you're wrong if I kill everyone in the world. She would not make a mistake. Even if she did something wrong, he would think that she was right. At the thought of this, the man added, I will always stand by your side. Even if everyone in the world thinks that she's wrong, as long as he thinks that she's right, that's enough. Yun Luofeng smiled evilly. What if your loved ones think that I'm wrong in the future? Yun Xiao seemed to have thought of something when he heard this. His expression paused for a moment before he raised his eyes. His grim black eyes stared fixedly at Yun Luofeng. You're the only one I have. Chapter 218. You're the only family I have. Yun Luofeng wanted to say something but was momentarily at a loss for words. She stared at Yun Xiao with a complicated expression as if she had not expected this man to be an orphan. Of course, Yun Xiao had not expected Yun Luofeng's thoughts to go awry. However, to him, there was no difference whether those people were alive or dead. Yun Luofeng stared deeply at the man's grim features and said seriously, from now on, the Yun family will be your home. My family will also be your family. As long as I'm here, you will never be alone. The young girl's words easily touched Yun Zhao's heart. He could not help but raise the corners of his lips and curl them into a faint smile. Even though this smile was very small and had disappeared in an instant, Yun Luofeng still managed to catch a glimpse of the man's inadvertent smile. Instantly, her heart skipped a beat. A peerless youth was nothing more than this. Yun Luofeng narrowed his eyes and raised his hand to pinch the man's grim face. He smiled evilly and said, "I never thought that you'd look so good when you smile. If other women were to see this, I wonder how many lascivious bees and butterflies would surround you." Yun Zhao stared blankly at Yun Luofeng and said seriously, "Then, from now on, I'll only smile for you." He would answer Yun Luofeng's every word very seriously, and he would also complete every task that Yun Luofeng instructed him to do in a serious manner. Even if Yun Luofeng was only joking, he would take it seriously. Yun Luofeng raised his brows as he stared at the man's serious expression. He lifted his chin frivolously and the smile on his lips became even more demonic and wanton. "Yun Zhao, do you know what your words mean?" As she spoke, the young girl took 2 steps closer to the man and pressed his body tightly against the wall. She raised her brows and said, "Since you've already sworn that you'll only smile for me from now on, you can't smile for any other woman. Otherwise." Yun Luofeng narrowed his eyes, and a dangerous glint flashed across his eyes. Yun Zhao's dark eyes stared deeply at Yun Luofeng. "I won't take back what I've said to you. I'll never lie to you either." This was a promise he had made to her. A lifetime commitment. Yun Luofeng's heart trembled fiercely. Even she did not know why, but she placed great trust in every word that Yun Zhao said. It was as if she knew deep in her bones that this man would never lie to her. Just as Yun Luofeng was in a daze, the man's hands suddenly landed on her back, forcefully pressing her against his chest. Then, he didn't give Yun Luofeng a chance to leave. His cold lips landed on the girl's lips, and his 2 hands tightly embraced the girl who was leaning against his chest. Yun Luofeng narrowed his eyes. The light in his eyes became increasingly dangerous as the corners of his lips curled up. This guy actually took the initiative to kiss her. For half a year, Yun Zhao, who had always been on the passive side, actually turned defense into offense for the first time. It seemed that his training wasn't completely useless. However, because Yun Zhao had never touched a woman before, he was as clean as a piece of white paper. Hence, his kissing skills were very inexperienced and he could only let Yun Luofeng lead him to find the knack. "Yun Zhao, your skills are too rusty. You still need to continue training on this point." Yun Luofeng's hands suddenly landed on Yun Zhao's chest, pushing the man away from her. Chapter 219. Following that, her hands slid into Yun Zhao's clothes like an earthworm. Her slender fingers gently caressed the man's firm muscles. Her caress was like an electric current, causing Yun Zhao's body to suddenly stiffen. A surge of lust rushed into his heart. At this moment, he actually had an impulse to throw everything aside and push her down. Eat him up, eat him up. No one was more excited about Yun Luofeng's actions than Xiao Mo in the Divine Grimoire space. His entire body almost jumped up as 2 streams of tears flowed uncontrollably. "That's great. Master is finally enlightened. As long as she dual cultivates with Yun Zhao, the increase in power would not be just a little. And he would be 1 step closer to leaving the Divine Grimoire space." Unfortunately, Xiao Mo had clearly rejoiced too early. Yun Luofeng's palm slid around Yun Zhao's chest once before he retracted it. A devilish smile appeared on the corners of his lips. "Yun Zhao, your muscles aren't bad. How did you train them?" Yun Zhao furrowed his brows. "I'm not sure. 10 years ago, I was thrown into the forest to fend for myself. I only left that place 3 years ago. In these 7 years, I've been fighting and killing spiritual beasts in the forest. It was probably during that time that I trained them." The man's grim tone sounded as if he was narrating someone else's story. Even when he was talking about the nightmarish life of the past 7 years, his expression did not change. Yun Luofeng's heart felt a sharp pain. Even though she was a good-for-nothing, she had a grandfather who was a general. All these years, those people had not dared to hurt her brazenly. However, the past few years that Yun Xiao had lived could be described as a nightmare. 10 years ago, he was not even 10 years old and had no power. One could imagine how he had survived those 7 years in the forest. Yun Xiao, during those 7 years in the forest, have you never thought of leaving that place? He had spent the best 7 years of his life alone in the forest. It was no wonder that this fellow was so naive. If there was no one to guide him in the relationship between a man and a woman, he would certainly be ignorant. He had only been accompanied by spiritual beasts in the forest, so how would he know about things like erotic pictures? At this moment, Yun Luofeng finally understood why there were men on this continent who didn't even know what pornography was. In response to Yun Luofeng's question, Yun Xiao only said one sentence: that mountain forest is named No Return. With just one sentence, Yun Luofeng understood what he meant. The Forest of No Return, just like its name, meant that there would be no return. It was one of the most dangerous places on the continent. It was said that the Forest of No Return was tens of thousands of miles long and stretched from the east to the west of the continent, spanning across the entire continent. More importantly, the Forest of No Return is filled with danger. If you're not careful, you could lose your life in the mouths of spirit beasts. Even if you managed to escape the pursuit of the spirit beasts, you could still fall into a trap. Even the continent's powerhouses wouldn't dare to casually enter the Forest of No Return. Yun Xiao, who left you there? Yun Luofeng's eyes were filled with murderous intent. She found it hard to imagine how Yun Xiao managed to survive in such a dangerous environment. He had even lived there for 7 whole years. That person. Yun Xiao's eyes gradually darkened. He's not fit to be called a person. Yun Luofeng suppressed the sourness in his heart and walked forward to gently embrace Yun Xiao. She lowered her eyes, concealing the murderous intent in her eyes. Chapter 220. Yun Xiao, no matter who hurt you, I will avenge you. She would never allow anyone close to her to be hurt. Yun Xiao lowered his head to look at the young girl in front of him. His lips curled into a shallow smile. I have you. That's enough. He could give up on everyone else in the world, but he would never let her go. Everyone else in the world could abandon him, as long as she was there, that was enough. Yun Luofeng lifted his head from the man's chest, a gentle smile blossomed on his beautiful face. We've been away for a long time. I'm sure that Master Yun is already furious with me. Besides, the things that I've done in Flowing Gold Country have not reached Long Yuan Country yet. I need to go home before the people in Long Yuan Country find out about this. Go home. These 2 words, to Yun Xiao, who had no family, how warm was it? From this moment onwards, as long as she was there, it would be his home. All right, let's go home. Long Yuan Country. In the main hall of General Yun's mansion, Master Yun's face was cold as he listened to the reports from his servants. His expression was gloomy and uncertain. Ever since the eldest miss had left without saying goodbye, the general's mood has never been good. No one in the general's mansion dared to provoke him, for fear that they would bring trouble upon themselves. Lord General, the servant glanced cautiously at the old man and reported with a trembling heart, His Royal Highness the Crown Prince has disappeared and the eldest miss has left without saying goodbye. Everyone in the outside world is guessing that the eldest miss is unwilling to let His Royal Highness the Crown Prince and Mu Wushuang spend the rest of their lives together, so she used the Crown Prince's illness as a bargaining chip to force him to elope with the eldest Mississippi. Bang. Master Yun slammed his fist fiercely on the table, breaking it into 2. The teacup fell to the ground and shattered, splashing tea all over the floor. Who's spreading this rumor? The servant swallowed hard and replied in a trembling voice, It's from Prime Minister Mu's mansion. Master Yun had not heard the rumors from the outside world and did not know how nasty they were. If he had heard them, he would not have been able to control his temper and would have killed someone on the spot. All in all, under the instigation of the bitches from Prime Minister Mu's residence, everyone was talking about Yun Luofeng and Gao Ling. Those words were nothing more than Yun Luofeng being shameless. The Crown Prince clearly did not love her, yet she used her illness as a threat to force the Crown Prince to elope with her. the pitiful crown prince actually fell into the clutches of Yun Luofeng. Given how Yun Luofeng had once pestered the crown prince, he must have already raped the crown prince. In an instant, all the women of Long Yuan country who admired the crown prince were gnashing their teeth in hatred towards Yun Luofeng. If Yun Luofeng were to appear in front of them, they would definitely swarm her and tear her apart. At this point in time, Yun Luofeng, who had just returned to Long Yuan country, was still unaware of the changes that had taken place during this period of time. However, the moment she stepped through the city gates, she noticed that the surrounding people were looking at her with a peculiar gaze. She was startled and frowned slightly. However, she did not think too much about it and walked towards the general's residence. "What did you say?" "Yun Luofeng is back." Prime Minister Mu's mansion. In the study, Mu Xingqiu, who was in the middle of a discussion, heard the servant's report. His face darkened and he sneered, "I didn't expect her to have the guts to return. This time, I won't let her off." Now, every time Mu Xingqiu thought of the humiliation he had suffered at the city gates, the anger in his heart would burn uncontrollably. Chapter 221. Grandfather. Mu Wuxuang gently lowered her eyelids. Her beautiful face was calm and without the slightest ripple of emotion. "Yun Luofeng has returned. What should we do?" "Wuxuang, don't worry, no one can compete with you for the crown prince." Mu Xingqiu narrowed his eyes and spoke in a cold voice. "I don't care if the crown prince's disappearance has anything to do with Yun Luofeng. I want the world to believe that she had coerced the crown prince. As long as the world believes this, her reputation will be completely ruined." Mu Wuxuang did not say another word. However, the hatred in her heart was like mushrooms after the rain. She could not stop it no matter how hard she tried. At the general's mansion, Yun Luofeng had just stepped into the front courtyard when she heard an angry voice coming from the main hall. She gently raised an eyebrow and said, "Yun Shao, go to the rear courtyard and look for me. I'll be right back." Ever since second uncle's recovery, she has moved back to the courtyard from the back mountain. Hence, she naturally asked Yun Shao to wait for her in the rear courtyard. Yun Shao nodded silently as he stared at the young girl's figure. He understood that Yun Luofeng was now trying to pacify the general's anger. In the dignified main hall, a servant trembled as he knelt on the cold ground, enduring the old man's surging anger. Master Dongfang was clearly unbearably angry. His elderly face was filled with rage and his eyes were filled with malevolence as if he wanted to devour someone. The table next to him had been broken into two and the tea had spilled all over the floor. It was a complete mess. Just as Master Dongfang was about to continue cursing, a soft laugh suddenly rang out, causing his elderly body to stiffen. "Who was it that provoked you while I was away? Why are you so angry as soon as I've returned?" The young girl's languid voice was filled with flattery, causing Master Dongfang to stiffly raise his head. He stared in disbelief at the young girl who was standing in the doorway. The young girl's white robes fluttered in the gentle breeze. Her pitch-black eyes were filled with a smile as she crossed her arms and stared at the dazed Master Dongfang with an evil smile. "Grandfather, I'm back." "She's back." These words finally brought the old man back to his senses. His first reaction when he saw Yun Luofeng was not to pull the girl into his arms to comfort her, nor was he to say in a friendly tone that it was good that she was back. Instead, he cursed out loud. "You damned girl, tell me honestly, where have you been fooling around during this time? How dare you run away from home without saying a word? Good. You've got guts, you've got some fucking guts. No wonder you're a descendant of the Yun family." Yun Luofeng's lips curled into a demonic smile as he looked at the furious old man. "I went to the flowing gold kingdom to avenge my parents." This one sentence caused all of the old man's curses to vanish in his throat. He stared blankly at Yun Luofeng, as if he hadn't heard clearly, and asked again. "You said you are going to avenge your parents?" Yun Luofeng nodded lightly. She waved her hand to dismiss the servants kneeling in the hall. She then turned her gaze towards the old man. "This time, the reason I went to the flowing gold kingdom was to find the mastermind behind the murder of my parents. Fortunately, I found those people and killed them to avenge my parents." Bang! Master Dongfang staggered and fell heavily onto the sandalwood chair. He was stunned for a moment before he suddenly let out a maniacal laugh. Chapter 222. As he laughed, he could not help but tear up as he said tearfully, "Younger, Linger, can you see this from the heavens? Those who caused your deaths have finally received their retribution, ha ha ha. Revenge." He hadn't even dared to think about these two words in all these years. After all, the other party was the royal family of Flowing Gold Country, while he was a general of an enemy country. How could he kill the dog emperor to avenge his son and daughter-in-law? He had never thought that his granddaughter would be so capable. She had killed the dog emperor without a sound. Fonger, good job. Good job. You are indeed a descendant of the Yun family. The old man gritted his teeth in hatred. That year, the emperor of Flowing Gold Country had his eyes on Linger and wanted the Yun family to hand her over. However, your father was a man of character. How could he allow his wife to be humiliated by others? Therefore, the Yun family refused to comply. Because of this, the dog emperor, Director Yi, found an excuse to declare war on Long Yuan country. Even now, the old man was still filled with rage when he thought of what had happened in the past. His Majesty, the Emperor of Long Yuan country, knew that the Flowing Gold Country had declared war because of this, but he still sent Linger to fight with Yun Yang. Yun Luofeng thought for a moment, his fingers stroking his chin as he asked, according to Gao Tu's character, he actually did not force mother to remarry? Huh, the old man laughed mockingly, how could he not? With Gao Tu's selfish character, how could he not force your mother to remarry to Director Yi? However, the Yun family is not so easily bullied. I can tolerate other things, but I will never allow a woman's happiness to be used in exchange for a peaceful future. If so, why does this country still need men? The old man said angrily, besides, I have confidence in your parents. With their capabilities, it is impossible for them to be defeated. Who would have known that Prime Minister Mu would be involved in this? If Prime Minister Mu had not leaked the information, your parents would not have died. Yun Luofeng was a man, and a man of indomitable spirit. Therefore, he disdained the practice of using women to form a marriage alliance. From his point of view, this country needed to be conquered with brute force. Only a coward would sacrifice a woman in exchange for the peace of a country. Any hot-blooded man would never do such a thing. Grandfather, Yun Luofeng slowly walked in front of the old man and smiled lightly. I said before, I will avenge my parents. Those people from the Flowing Gold Nation are only one of them. Mu Xingqiu is the second. Third, it was the Bai family who protected the Flowing Gold Kingdom's royal family. By the way, Grandpa Shen seemed to suddenly remember something and frowned. When you were away, Mu Shen from the Mu family came to look for you a few times. I used the reason that you were not around to chase him out. Mu Shen, Mu Wushuang's half-brother. The #1 hedonistic son of the imperial city. More than half a year ago, he had been beaten up by the Yun family's guards because he had caused trouble for her on the street. Then, under her persuasion, he took out 50 million taels of silver as the treatment fee. However, ever since she had gone into seclusion, she had not seen Mu Shen again. Why had he come to look for her now? Just as she was thinking, a servant hurriedly walked in and respectfully reported, General, Miss, the Mu family's second young master has come to see you. Hearing the servant's report, Yun Luofeng shrugged his shoulders. We were just talking about him, and he came. In that case, I will go see this Mu Shen. I also want to know why he has come to see me. Chapter 223. The sunlight poured down, covering every corner of the courtyard. At this moment, in the courtyard, Mu Shen was anxiously pacing back and forth. His hands were nervously clenched into fists, his eyes full of urgency. Suddenly, a beautiful figure in front of him was reflected in his eyes, causing a deep sense of amazement to emerge in his eyes. His heart was fiercely shaken because of this. Since half a year ago, after the girl failed to commit suicide, it was as if she had changed into a different person. Even every time she appeared, she would bring a halo of light, instantly attracting everyone's attention. Yun Luofeng, whispering these 3 words, Mu Shen's eyes were somewhat complicated. If it weren't for this girl, perhaps he would not be able to carry on the family line for the rest of his life. The girl walked in front of Mu Shen and slowly stopped her footsteps. Her eyebrows were filled with an evil smile, lazily hooking up the corner of her lips. "You came to find me. Is there something wrong with your body?" Mu Shen's face turned red, and he said timidly, "No. No, I came here to tell you one thing. I just inadvertently heard the conversation between Mu Wuxuan and Mu Xingqiu. They want to frame the crown prince's disappearance on your head. I hope you can be prepared to deal with it." Yun Luofeng evilly raised her eyebrows and asked with a smile, "Why did you come to tell me this?" "Because, Mu Shen's face was somewhat tangled, but in the end, he still made up his mind and said, "I want to follow you. Give me a reason." Yun Luofeng raised her eyes and looked directly at the boy standing in front of her. "Give me a reason that will convince me." Mu Shen lowered his eyes and clenched his fists tightly. "I want revenge, revenge for my twin sister." At the beginning, Mu Wuxuan listed out the crimes at the city gate. One of them was the murder of his half-sister. As for the younger sister she killed, she and Mu Shen shared the same mother. All these years, I have not enjoyed a single good day in the Mu Jia. I can only be a foil to the Mu siblings. Mu Shen raised his head, his eyes showing a touch of hatred. "Miss Yun, you also know that I am known as the #1 playboy in the imperial city. Do you really think I want to be like this? Only when I become a useless playboy will the Mu siblings take me lightly and I can continue to be the second young master of the Mu Jia." His hatred burst out like a fountain. His eyes, which were filled with hatred, were dyed red by the blood-red light. He was like a wolf hiding in the dark. If one was not careful, they would be bitten to pieces. The corners of Yun Luofeng's lips curled up. The Mu clan probably never thought that Mu Shen would hide himself so deeply. All these years, it was the Mu family that had raised Mu Shen, but at the same time, it had also turned him into a tiger and wolf in the dark. It's hiding in the dark and eyeing the Mu Jia's people, ready to pounce and bite them at any time. Mu Shen. Yun Luofeng stared deeply at Mu Shen. "I'll give you a chance to kill your enemy with your own hands. Are you willing to take it?" Mu Shen's eyes lit up, and his breathing quickened. "I'm willing. As long as I can take revenge, I'm willing to do anything." In that heartless Mu family, her little sister was her only source of warmth. However, even this last bit of warmth was personally obliterated by Mu Wuxuan. And this deep hatred will only disappear with the death of the enemy, otherwise, it will accompany him for a lifetime. Chapter 224. "Good, remember what you said today." Yun Luofeng's lips curled into a charming smile. Her black eyes were very bright, like the dark starry sky. At this moment, a loud voice came from outside the door. After hearing the familiar voice, Yun Luofeng slightly narrowed her eyes and ordered, "Mu Shen, leave from the back door." Mu Shen was startled. He also understood that at this time, he couldn't let those people see him and Yun Luofeng together. Therefore, he didn't resist and nodded in agreement. "All right. You take him out from the back door." Yun Luofeng casually pointed to a servant girl and asked her to take Mu Shen out of the place. Then she stepped towards the door. Outside the bustling door, the crowd was surrounded, constantly pointing at the open door of the general's mansion. When they saw the beautiful girl who stepped out from the door, they immediately stopped talking. Yun Luofeng's arrogant eyes looked around. After seeing that everyone had shut their mouths, a pair of dark eyes gradually turned to Mu Wuxuan. Plop. Without any warning, Mu Wuxuan suddenly knelt in front of her. Her beautiful face no longer had its usual elegance. Her face was filled with tears, delicate and pitiful. "What, didn't you kneel enough in front of my parents' grave? Want to repent in front of me? Unfortunately, no matter how much you repent, I will not forgive you." Yun Luofeng's eyebrows slightly raised. She glanced at Mu Wuxuan with a smile that wasn't a smile. At this moment, Mu Wuxuan had already killed Yun Luofeng 1,000 times in her heart, but her face was still like a pear blossom in tears, making people feel pity for her. "Yun Luofeng, I know I was wrong, I really know I was wrong. I shouldn't have fallen in love with the Crown Prince. But, if it weren't for the fact that you are a waste, the Crown Prince would never have fallen in love with me. No matter what resentment you have, you can vent it on me, I only ask you to return the crown prince to me. Yun Luofeng crossed her arms over her chest, her back against the door, completely looking like she was watching a good show. Do you think that a person like the crown prince is worth the trouble of kidnapping? Mu Wuxuang bites her lips tightly, her eyes drooping down with a trace of ruthlessness, but her tone is still pleading. The crown prince came to see you for treatment, you said. If he is willing to accompany you for a few nights, you will treat him. The crown prince told me this personally. In order for the crown prince to recover his spiritual power, I endured it. Who would have thought that he would disappear for several months? I had no choice but to look for you. She didn't say that Yun Luofeng was using this to threaten the crown prince into marrying her. Instead, he was forcing the crown prince to accompany him for a few nights. The difference between the two was that the former proved Yun Luofeng's pursuit of power. The latter meant that she was a slut who could sleep with anyone. How could she say that she would accompany him for a few nights? If she wasn't a slut, then what was she? Yun Luofeng raised the corner of his lips, his posture languid and demonic. Mu Wuxuan, not everyone is interested in a slut like the crown prince. To be honest, no matter if it's his looks or his figure, he's far inferior to my Yun Xiao. Instead of tasting Yun Xiao's tempting pastries, I'm going to taste a pile of pig's feed? Mu Wuxuang raised her beautiful eyes in astonishment. This woman actually compared the crown prince to pig's feed? For a man, women are just accessories. Isn't there a saying that women are like clothes? But she actually compared a man to food, and even used the word taste. Chapter 225. Mu Wuxuang couldn't believe it. How shameless was this woman? She could actually say such a thing without even blushing or skipping a beat. Yun Luofeng, you. Mu Wuxuang pointed at Yun Luofeng. Are you still a lady? Yun Luofeng gently raised her eyebrows. Sorry, I'm just a playboy. The word lady doesn't apply to me. The world says that the eldest daughter of the Yun family is a playboy. Since that's the case, she will show her playboy character even more thoroughly. Looking at the cold man coming out from the door behind her, the corner of Yun Luofeng's mouth rose. She tightly pulled the man's arm and pressed him against the wall. Standing on her tiptoes, she raised her head and kissed the man's cold lips. The man was startled. He didn't resist Yun Luofeng's kiss. Instead, he raised his hand and embraced her body. His cold and handsome face shrouded in the sunlight revealed a faint light. So beautiful that people couldn't move their eyes away. Looking at the two people kissing, everyone's heart only felt that it was so beautiful. Like a peerless painting, it made people unable to have any obscene emotions. Mu Wuxuang's beautiful eyes widened. She hurriedly covered her mouth to stop the scream from coming out. In any case, she never thought that Yun Luofeng would kiss a man in public. Especially when the man was just a lowly guard. After the kiss, Yun Luofeng released the man in front of her. Her slender fingers gently lifted the other's chin. She smiled wickedly. Yun Xiao, just now this Mu Wuxuang said that I used the treatment of the crown prince as a bargaining chip to blackmail the crown prince into accompanying me for a few nights. Do you think that this crown prince can enter my eyes? Yun Xiao gently frowned, her cold eyes swept to the kneeling Mu Wuxuang. He's too ugly. The implication is that with the crown prince's appearance, it's impossible for him to enter Yun Luofeng's eyes. Mu Wuxuang's face suddenly changed. Back in the palace, you kept glancing at me. It was only because I didn't want to look at you that your love turned into hate. She even colluded with Yun Luofeng. It's estimated that only she would lower herself to the point of committing adultery with a guard. But now, as a guard, what right do you have to insult His Highness the Crown Prince? If it was in the past, everyone would firmly believe in Mu Wuxuan's words. However, ever since that day when Mu Wuxuan admitted to her crimes at the city gates, everyone finally realized that this usually elegant and indifferent young lady was actually so unbearable. Therefore, the crowd was waiting to watch a good show after hearing what she had to say. You're too ugly. Yun Xiao paused for a moment before continuing. The two of you are a match made in heaven. You, Mu Wuxuan gritted his teeth in anger. This was the second time that Yun Xiao had insulted him for being ugly. How could a woman who had always thought of herself as a peerless beauty endure this? Since you think that the Crown Prince's disappearance has nothing to do with you, then take out the evidence now to prove this matter. Otherwise, I will definitely not let you off. She slowly stood up from the ground and clenched her fists tightly. Her elegant and calm face was now filled with malevolence. Regardless of whether or not Yun Luofeng had anything to do with the Crown Prince's matter, she was going to frame her. In any case, this woman would never be able to produce any evidence. Yun Shao pondered for a moment, regarding his whereabouts. There's no one in the 4 countries who doesn't know. Mu Wuxuang sneered. You said that there's no one in the 4 countries who doesn't know of the Crown Prince's whereabouts. Then why don't we know? If you want to find an excuse, you should find one that's convincing. Just based on your words, you want me to conclude that Yun Luofeng is innocent? Chapter 226. Yun Shao glanced coldly at Mu Wuxuan and said expressionlessly, a few days ago, there was a piece of news that the Crown Prince of Long Yuan country had sold himself in the bamboo house. Many people already know about this. As if afraid that people wouldn't believe him, he added, if you don't believe me, you can go to the bamboo house and watch. Boom! Yun Zhao's words were like a bolt from the blue, exploding in the crowd and causing a commotion. The Crown Prince actually went to the bamboo house to sell himself? What kind of place was the bamboo house? It was a place to satisfy the perverted desires of men who liked men of the opposite sex. Who would have thought that the Crown Prince would actually go to such a place to sell himself? No, I don't believe it. You're talking nonsense. The Crown Prince would never go to the bamboo house to sell himself. Mu Wuxuan's body trembled as he angrily stepped forward, trying to pull Yun Shao away. However, before his hand could touch Yun Zhao's body, the man's aura suddenly exploded and with a loud bang, Mu Wuxuan's body was ruthlessly thrown out. Mu Wuxuan fell to the ground in a sorry state, vomiting blood incessantly. Her face was pale and colorless as she stared angrily at Yun Luofeng and Yun Shao. She would never believe that the Crown Prince would go to such a place. At this moment, the crowd was still in a state of shock. Hence, no one found it strange that a guard like Yun Shao could actually injure a genius like Mu Wuxuan. Most importantly, Mu Wuxuan didn't even manage to touch the corner of his clothes. Come, let's go to the bamboo house to watch the Crown Prince. No one knew who in the crowd said this, but the crowd immediately dispersed, leaving behind Mu Wuxuan who was lying on the ground. There were branches of the bamboo houses all over the mainland. And the bamboo houses of Long Yuan country were located not far from the imperial city. At this time, in the private room of the bamboo house, the entire floor was filled with seductive moans that made one's heart race. The moans were sometimes high and sometimes low, sometimes long and sometimes short, but it was clear that the 2 voices belonged to a man. TSK, the taste of the Crown Prince of Long Yuan country is really different. Such soft and tender skin, it makes one forget to go home, ha ha ha. In the room, a burly man laughed with satisfaction. He rudely pinched Gao Ling's chin, his narrowed eyes filled with a cold light. It's a pity that you received too many guests. Otherwise, I would really want to redeem your freedom. Gao Ling lowered his eyelids and clenched his fists tightly. He had learned to swallow his anger after spending more than a month in the bamboo house. If he resisted, what awaited him would be a group of vicious beatings. Moreover, the day was enough for him to relax for a period of time. When night fell, it would be a real nightmare. He would never forget that every time the moon came, the lady boss of the bamboo building would lead a few spiritual beasts into his room, torturing him between life and death. Even if he were to leave this damned place one day, he would not be able to make the trauma in his heart disappear. Crown Prince, I don't know if you have ever played something exciting before. How about we play something exciting? The rough man laughed. Gao Ling raised his head in horror. Before he could say anything, a whip lashed his body, causing his skin to split open. What do you want? A wave of anger rose in his heart, causing Gao Ling's emotions to explode. He turned around and grabbed the burly man's arm, his face contorted in anger as he roared, I'm warning you, don't cross the line. Chapter 227. Slap. The burly man raised his hand and slapped Gao Ling across the face. Gao Ling saw stars from the slap and his ears buzzed. There seemed to be a mouthful of bloody phlegm in his throat and the stench of blood was extremely pungent. Bitch, I've paid for this. I can do whatever I want. Do you think that you're still the high and mighty crown prince? In this bamboo house, you're no different from those prostitutes. Don't try to act all high and mighty. I won't let you off just because you're the crown prince. However, if you serve me well, I might even redeem your freedom in a moment of impulse. Prostitutes, these two words were like a thorn that pierced Gao Ling's heart. Compared to the heart-wrenching pain on his body, the pain in his heart was even more intense. Every time he thought about the humiliation he had suffered over the past few days, he wanted to kill someone. He, Gao Ling, was still the high and mighty crown prince just over a month ago. He had always been the one fooling around with women. Yet now, he had to curry favor with a group of men. In order to protect himself, he had been covered in cuts and bruises. He had even given up on his pride and dignity. Why were these people still unwilling to let him off? Slap. The burly man's whip landed and Gao Ling's body trembled in pain. His fingers gripped the bedsheets tightly as his handsome yet pale face contorted into a sinister expression. Sooner or later, he would make these people who had once humiliated him suffer a fate worse than death. Oh, I didn't expect Master Qin to have such unique interests. You actually like to play like this? At that moment, the door was pushed open and a seductive voice drifted into the room. It was a voice that seeped into his bones. However, to Gao Ling, this voice was like a nightmare. His body trembled even more violently and he bit his pale lips. His heart was filled with fear and he did not even have the courage to turn around. Chun Myang, I'm having fun here. Why did you disturb me? The big man frowned and said in a slightly dissatisfied tone. Chun Myang giggled as she covered her mouth and said, Master Qin, a lot of people know that the Crown Prince of Long Yuan country is here to receive a guest. Therefore, they specially came from afar to watch. I can't disappoint them, so I had no choice but to come and disturb Master Qin. If Master Qin likes it, I can send him to you for a few nights. At that time, you can enjoy yourself even more. Upon hearing Chun Myang's words, Gao Ling's body trembled and his expression became even more terrified. No. He couldn't afford to be surrounded by those people. Otherwise, if the news spread to the Long Yuan kingdom, not only would he lose all his face, he would also lose his position as the crown prince. Master Qin laughed and said, Thank you, Chun Myang. Chun Myang, you can take him away now. Don't forget what you promised me. Chun Myang flirtatiously threw a coquettish glance at Master Qin. Master Qin, don't worry. When have I, Chun Myang, ever gone back on my words? I'll wash him clean tonight and send him to you. As soon as she finished speaking, Chun Myang's gaze turned towards Gao Ling and she smiled seductively. Gao Ling, do you want to leave on your own, or do you want me to drag you along? Gao Ling's body trembled and he bit his lips, suppressing the shame and anger in his heart. He pleaded, Can I put on my clothes first? TSK, someone like you will only look like a dog even if you put on clothes. There's no need for that at all. By the way, let me remind you that the people who came to watch you this time are all your neighbors. So, I want you to show your body in front of them and let them see the marks on your body. Chapter 228. In the luxurious hall of the bamboo building, Mu Wushuang's eyes were filled with nervousness, her hands involuntarily clenched into fists. Although she didn't believe that the crown prince would enter the bamboo building, she still came in the end. Her purpose was to make herself feel more at ease. But, when the scarred and handsome young man appeared in the hall, her heart completely collapsed. She hurriedly covered her mouth to prevent herself from screaming uncontrollably. No. Impossible. How could this be? Why would the crown prince come to this bamboo building to sell himself? It must be that bitch Yun Luofeng's doing. She will never let her go. Everyone, Chun Myang giggled, the person you want to meet has arrived. When the time comes, don't forget to pay up. The people of my bamboo building are not that easy to gather around, especially when this is the crown prince of Long Yuan country. With Chun Yang's treacherous nature, how could she not take advantage of this opportunity to make a fortune? It's the Crown Prince, it's really him. I didn't think that the dignified Crown Prince would fall to such an extent, actually selling himself here. TSK, I have to say, this Crown Prince is really soft and tender, I can't help but want to buy him for a night. Listening to the obscene voices below, Jialing kept his head down, not daring to raise his head to look at them. If it wasn't for the fact that he didn't have the courage to commit suicide, he would have already killed himself. It would be better than being humiliated by these people. You're all talking nonsense. Suddenly, an angry voice rang out. As soon as this voice fell into his ears, Jialing's body stiffened, his head lowered to the ground. His Royal Highness is not that kind of person, it must be this woman who forced him to do this. Mu Wuxuang clenched her teeth, her sharp eyes were like a long sword, fiercely shooting towards Chun Yang. You forced the Crown Prince of Long Yuan country to sell himself, what is your crime? Chun Yang giggled and flirtatiously said, Little sister, you've wronged me. My bamboo building has always been a fair trade. One is willing to buy, and the other is willing to sell. I'm not deceiving either the young or the old. Otherwise, you can ask this guy if he's doing this voluntarily. As she spoke, Chun Yang fiercely pinched Jialing's thigh. Her fair, jade-like fingertips touched the youth's snow-white skin. Gao Ling shuddered at the thought of the nightmares he had been having over the past few days. I volunteered. Like a thunderbolt, Mu Wuxuang's footsteps trembled twice and she took 2 steps back. Her pair of beautiful eyes were filled with tears as she looked at the boy who had been bowing his head from beginning to end. I don't believe it. I won't believe it. You wouldn't do such a thing. These people must have forced you. Don't worry, I'll go back and find someone to save you now. Mu Wuxuang bit her lips tightly, turned around and wanted to leave, but before she could take a few steps, she was stopped by several strong men. What do you want? Mu Wuxuang's chest was filled with anger as he asked coldly. Just as she finished her question, Chun Yang's laughter could be heard coming from behind her. Miss Chun seems to be acquainted with the Crown Prince of Long Yuan country. Since you want to save him so badly, why don't you take his place for a few nights and I'll let him go? What do you think? Jialing's eyes lit up and he hurriedly looked towards Mu Wuxuang. His originally gloomy eyes lit up. Chapter 229. That's right, he does love Mu Wuxuang, but the person he loves more is himself. As long as he can escape from this devil's den, what's the point of sacrificing Mu Wuxuang? What's more, the person who had kidnapped him had said that he was delusional enough to steal the Ghost Emperor's woman, that's why he had suffered such torture. And the only woman he loves is Mu Wuxuang. Therefore, the woman that the Ghost Emperor has taken a liking to must be Mu Wuxuang. Therefore, there's nothing wrong with using Mu Wuxuang to offset the torture he has suffered. Who asked the Ghost Emperor to send him to this damned place? Unfortunately, Gao Ling did not know that the Ghost Emperor's woman was not Mu Wuxuang, but Yun Luofeng. What did you say? Mu Wuxuang turned to Chun Yang in disbelief. Her face was ashen. You dare to ask me to receive a guest? Chun Yang covered her lips and smiled. Her voice was so sweet that it made one's body go soft. Don't you love him very much and want to save him? If you really love him, why don't you take his place for a few nights? Most of the guests in my bamboo house are men and women. I'm sure I can sell you for a good price. You. Mu Wuxuang's chest heaved with anger and her beautiful eyes flashed with a fierce light. However, before she could finish her sentence, she was interrupted by an anxious voice. Wuxuang, you must save me. You're the only one who can save me now. Mu Wuxuang's body trembled and she stared at Gao Ling with a sad and desperate look. Her eyes were filled with pain. Crown Prince, you want me to take your place? Do you know what it means for a woman to lose her virginity? Wuxuang, don't worry. As long as you save me, I'll marry you and I won't let you down. Gao Ling hurriedly replied. Mu Wuxuang smiled. Her smile was sad and beautiful, the pain in her beautiful eyes was even more intense, and her beautiful face was pale. This was the man who had once said that he loved her. Now, for her sake, he wants to push her into this devil's den. He even said that he would marry her in the future. Ridiculous, this is really ridiculous. If she really lost her chastity, how could this man still marry her? Once he leaves this place, he might even turn against me. Have you all finished discussing? Chun Yang raised her eyebrows impatiently. Who will stay behind? Chun Yang, we have already discussed it. Gao Ling didn't give Mu Wuxuang a chance to refuse and quickly said, she is willing to replace me for a few nights. I only hope that Chun Yang will let me go. Chun Yang's lips curled into a disdainful smile as she looked at Gao Ling's wretched expression. This was a man. In order to protect himself, he would not hesitate to send his own woman away. Even if he had to wear a green hat, he was not afraid. All right, since you've come to an agreement, you don't need to receive any more guests for the next few days. As for whether I'll let you go, that will depend on my mood. Chun Yang smiled flirtatiously. Come, drag this lady away to wash her clean. Tonight, we'll start receiving guests. Mu Wuxuang lowered her eyes, her long eyelashes covering the hatred in her eyes. Yun Luofeng, if it weren't for your people revealing Gao Ling's whereabouts, I wouldn't have gone to the bamboo tower, and I wouldn't have fallen into these people's hands. So, one day, I will let you have a taste of a fate worse than death. And Gao Ling. You're such a coward, you don't deserve to be called a man. Even animals know how to protect their women, but you're worse than animals. Chapter 230. When Chun Yang reached Gao Ling's side, she paused for a moment. A disdainful smile appeared on her enchanting face as she said, Gao Ling, Chun Yang, have met many men in my life but I've never met anyone worse than you. If you had insisted on not using this woman in exchange for your freedom, perhaps I would have been moved and let you go. Unfortunately, you're such a disappointment. After saying this, Chun Yang swayed her slender waist and walked seductively into the room. Even though she did not look at Gao Ling, she could tell that the man's expression was extremely ugly at that moment. Wuxuang, I'm sorry. Gao Ling clenched his fists and stared at Mu Wuxuang with an apologetic look in his eyes. Don't worry, after we leave this place, I won't turn my back on you. In fact, I'll treat you well. Mu Wuxuang laughed icily in her heart. He won't turn his back on me? This man was only putting it in a nice way. Now, she would never believe a single word of his. Even though that was what she thought in her heart, she did not show it on her face. She only stared at Gao Ling with a pained look in her eyes. Crown Prince, I know that you have your own difficulties. As long as you're willing to marry me, I won't blame you. Won't blame him? How could that be? She still needed to rely on the royal family now. Of course, she could not ruin their relationship. Once she had enough power, whether it was Yun Luofeng or Gao Ling, she would not let either of them go. Wuxuang, thank you for understanding me. Gao Ling was touched. Don't worry, I won't abandon you. I'll love you even more than before. Mu Wuxuang's lips curled into a bitter smile. When she was pushed away by the burly men, she could not help but turn to look at Gao Ling. That look was filled with reluctance and it made Gao Ling's heart ache. Wuxuang, everyone is selfish. I don't want to stay here forever, so I had no choice but to sacrifice you. Fortunately, you're more sensible and can understand me. If it had been that good-for-nothing Yun Luofeng, he would not have cared about my life. There was a complicated look in Gao Ling's eyes. But you're too outstanding, so outstanding that even the Ghost Emperor has taken a liking to you. Otherwise, I would not have to suffer like this. Fortunately, the person you love is still me. However, this indirectly proves that I'm more outstanding than the Ghost Emperor. In Gao Ling's self-righteous imagination, the woman that the Ghost Emperor liked must be Mu Wuxuang, but the person that Mu Wuxuang loved was him. Didn't this prove that he was more outstanding than the Ghost Emperor? That was why the Ghost Emperor was so angry and humiliated to punish him. Gao Ling's lips curled into a smile. Ghost Emperor, no matter how powerful you are, the woman you love loves me deeply. Moreover, you thought that selling me to the bamboo house was my punishment. Little did you know that I had dragged your beloved woman down with me. This is the price you have to pay for hurting me. The fourth prince's mansion was very different from the crown prince's mansion. The fourth prince's mansion didn't have a luxurious and elegant style. Instead, it looked exceptionally tranquil, with tall mountains and flowing rivers. From afar, Yun Luofeng could see the man sitting in the pavilion. He narrowed his eyes slightly. The man in the pavilion had clearly sensed her presence. He lifted his handsome face and smiled warmly. However, no matter how warm his smile was, the cunning look in his eyes betrayed him. "You're here?" The man raised the corners of his lips and asked in a gentle voice. Chapter 231. Yun Luofeng stopped in his tracks and raised his eyes to look at the handsome man sitting in the pavilion. "Why are you looking for me?" The fourth prince of Long Yuan country, Gao Shaochen, looked gentle on the surface but was actually as cunning as a fox. This kind of man was full of danger and was hard to fathom. Gao Shaochen narrowed his pair of fox-like eyes and his lips curled into an elegant smile. "I've asked you here because I have something to discuss with you." "What is it?" Yun Luofeng glanced at Gao Shaochen from the corner of his eyes and raised his eyebrows devilishly. Gao Shaochen elegantly raised the teacup in his hand and took a sip. His gentle face was filled with a gentle smile. "I want to conspire with you." Gao Shaochen paused before continuing. "You know that you hate Gao Ling and Mu Wuxuan. As long as we conspire, I'll give you the chance to step on them." Yun Luofeng looked at Gao Shaochen and smiled. "You're wrong. I don't hate Gao Ling and Mu Wuxuan. The two of them are not worthy of my hatred. There was only one person she hated. That person was the one who had thrown Yun Shao into the forest of no return 10 years ago. Apart from him, no one else was worthy of her hatred." Gao Shaochen chuckled as his narrowed fox-like eyes revealed a cunning glint. "Don't you want to be the best? I believe that as long as we conspire, Long Yuan country will be ours. I'm sorry, but you're wrong about one thing. The world that I want is not Long Yuan country. It's the entire mainland." The young girl raised her eyes, a hint of arrogance flashing in her wild and unruly eyes. What she wanted was never Long Yuan country, but the entire mainland. Looking at the domineering young girl in white, Gao Shaochen's fingers that were caressing the rim of his teacup trembled slightly. His narrowed fox-like eyes were filled with excitement, as if there was a fire burning within them. "Xiao Fenger, the more you act like this, the more interested I am in you. I think that we are a match made in heaven. If we conspire together, no one can beat us in their schemes." Indeed. If Yun Luofeng and Gao Shaochen joined forces, no one would be able to out-scheme them. However, to Yun Luofeng, compared to the sinister and cunning Gao Shaochen, the pure and sincere Yun Shao was much deeper in his heart. When she was with Yun Shao, her body and mind were very relaxed. But when it came to Gao Shaochen, she felt that if she was not careful, she would fall into his trap. What's more, such a man would only use things that were useful to him. If they were useless to him, he would definitely kick them away. "I think." Yun Luofeng paused for a moment, then smiled evilly. "It's better for you to scheme by yourself. I have no interest in accompanying you." Hearing the girl's words, Gao Shaochen wasn't angry. He smiled warmly at the girl, his pair of fox-like eyes staring straight at Yun Luofeng. "I've heard that Miss Yun's favorite thing to do is to flirt with handsome men. Why is it that a handsome man like me is right in front of you, yet you don't flirt a little? If you are willing to take liberties with me, I will definitely accompany you to the end." Yun Luofeng stroked his chin and looked Gao Shaochen up and down. His lips curled into a smile. "Pretty boy. I'm sorry, I don't see what's so beautiful about you." This Gao Shaochen was indeed very handsome. Unfortunately, with that exquisite Yun Shao by his side, how could there be any other man who could catch his eye? Chapter 232. Gao Shaochen's face darkened. He stood up from the pavilion and slowly walked towards Yun Luofeng. His pair of fox-like eyes shone with a sinister light. "Xiao Feng, your words really hurt me." Gao Shaochen's slightly raised lips curled into a gentle smile. "You're even willing to flirt with a guard, why don't you flirt with me? If you're willing, I can wash up and wait for you in the room." His ambiguous words caused Yun Luofeng's eyes to darken. A cold light flashed across his jet-black eyes. So what if he's a guard? Even if Yun Shao is a guard, he's still a guard that belongs exclusively to me. You don't even know how many women you've had. Do you think that I'd be interested in a man from the imperial family? Gao Xiaochen's lips curled into a smile and he took a few steps closer to Yun Luofeng. But don't you think that the two of us are more compatible? At that time, your engagement with the crown prince was annulled. If you were to marry me now, you'd definitely give the crown prince a tight slap. I also understand that neither of us are people who easily fall in love. So, this marriage, to us, is a transaction. Looking at the approaching Gao Xiaochen, Yun Luofeng's brows furrowed. His black eyes flashed with an arrogant and domineering light. If you dare take another step forward, I don't mind breaking your legs. Gao Xiaochen's face stiffened and he stopped in his tracks. He narrowed his eyes and looked straight at Yun Luofeng. Xiaofeng, it seems that this is the third time we've met. I don't know what I've done to make you hate me so much. This was something that Gao Xiaochen could not understand. No matter what, he was the fourth prince of Long Yuan country. There were countless women who were willing to marry him. But only this young girl saw him as a poisonous scorpion. Was he really that scary? I'm just not used to you being so close to me. Yun Luofeng raised an eyebrow. Today, you've asked me to come here because you have something to tell me about Mu Wuxuang. Could it be that this is the real reason why you've asked me to come here? Gao Xiaochen glanced at Yun Luofeng. His handsome face still held a gentle smile, as if he did not take the young girl's words to heart. I just wanted to tell you that Mu Wuxuang's identity is not simple. However, I don't know the specifics. Even Mu Wuxuang himself doesn't know. Only my imperial father himself would know. Yun Luofeng's heart suddenly sank. She had already guessed that Gao Tu's favoritism towards the prime minister's household wasn't just because of imperial concubine Mu. She hadn't thought that Mu Wuxuang's identity wasn't that simple. He just didn't know to what extent it wasn't simple. Xiaofeng, I called you over to tell you all this to remind you. If you want to deal with Mu Wuxuang, you have to uproot the identity behind her, otherwise there will be endless troubles in the future. Gao Xiaochen gently smiled and said, of course, if you marry me and help me ascend the throne, then our royal family will have the backing of the spirit sect, and the people behind Mu Wuxuang will not act rashly. Yun Luofeng raised his black eyes and smiled evilly. No matter what kind of background Mu Wuxuang has, Yun Luofeng will not be afraid. What's more, I've never been willing to share my man with other women. What I want is just a couple for the rest of my life. Just based on the fact that you have countless concubines in your backyard, you don't have the right to say such words. Gao Xiaochen narrowed his eyes slightly. You really don't want to reconsider? As a member of the royal family, Gao Xiaochen had been influenced since he was a child that a man should have a courtyard full of wives and concubines. Therefore, after he reached adulthood, he naturally accepted several concubines. Chapter 233. But now, from the mouth of a woman, he heard the words one and only for a lifetime? A pair of people for a lifetime, hee. What a joke. How many men in this world would be willing to have only one wife? Especially since he was born into the imperial family. Even if he did not want to take a concubine, there would be countless people who would give their daughters to him. Under the influence of such an environment, how could he remain untainted by the mud? If you're done, it's time for me to go home. My Yin Shao is still waiting for me at home. The young girl smiled lazily and swept her gaze across Gao Xiaochen's handsome features. She then turned around and left under the man's watchful gaze. Seeing that the young girl was about to leave, Gao Xiaochen wanted to reach out and grab her, but he instinctively put his hand down. His sinister fox-like eyes stared at the young girl's departing figure as his gaze flickered. Little Feng, the more you reject me, the more interest I have in you. However, I cannot be too straightforward with you, little fellow. Otherwise, I might scare you away. Since that's the case, where should I go to find another you? From the beginning, Gao Xiaochen had never thought of disbanding the harem. To him, it was normal for a man to have 3 or 4 wives. As long as Yun Luofeng accepts him, nothing else would be a problem. In the rear courtyard of the general's mansion. From afar, Yun Luofeng could see the black-robed man standing under a tree. She slowly paused in her steps and her pitch-black eyes fell upon the man's heroic and handsome face. A devilish smile appeared on her peerless features. "Yun Shao, what are you doing here?" "Waiting for you." Those two simple words expressed his endless yearning. This man would never express his feelings, but there was no doubt that he was very real. He had no deceit, no deceit. Yun Luofeng could no longer hold back and quickly walked to the man's side. She then stretched out her arms and hugged the man tightly, burying her head in his chest. "Yun Shao, you don't need to wait for me here from now on. No matter what I do, I'll bring you along." Yun Luofeng raised her head and stared at the man's handsome face. "However, when I don't ask you to make a move, it means that I want to personally teach someone a lesson. So, don't stand up for me at those times." "All right." Yun Shao faintly nodded. His voice was hoarse and magnetic, like a feather gently brushing against Yun Luofeng's heart, making her feel an unbearable itch. She narrowed her eyes and pushed Yun Shao against the tree. She stood on her tiptoes and kissed the man's cold lips. Feeling the heat in his heart, Yun Luofeng's hand fiercely grabbed the man's clothes and tore the cloth on the man's upper body into pieces, revealing his sexy chest. Thump. Not far away, Qin Yuan, who was hiding in the dark, almost tumbled to the ground. He hurriedly steadied himself. His entire body was in a mess, as if he had been struck by lightning. Heavens, his master had actually been forcefully pushed. Mistress was truly domineering and cool. Too mighty. In this world, she was probably the only one who could forcefully push master away. The girl's fingertips lightly touched his chest, like an electric current flowing through, causing the man's body to slightly tremble. Perhaps Yun Luofeng's teasing had gone too far, causing a wave of heat to rise from the bottom of Yun Zhao's heart. He raised his hand and pulled the young girl's body tightly into his arms. Chapter 234. Feeling the warmth of the young girl's body, Yun Shao could no longer endure it. He stretched out his arm and pressed the young girl against the tree. Yun Luofeng narrowed his eyes and the corners of his lips curled into a devilish smile. "Compared to being pressed down, I prefer pressing down on you." Her black eyes reflected an ambiguous light. The smile on her peerlessly beautiful face was so enchanting that it made one's heart tremble. "My lady! My lady!" Qin Yen hurriedly ran over. Who would have thought that just as she reached the backyard, she would see two people in disheveled clothes? She was momentarily stunned and hurriedly covered her eyes. "I didn't see anything, please continue." She hurriedly turned around and was about to leave. But after a few steps, she seemed to remember something and retreated to Yun Luofeng's side. "Miss, this servant is here to tell you that Mu Wushuang is also selling his body in the bamboo house. This matter is known by the entire Long Yuan country, so this servant is here to tell you, to make you happy." "All right, this servant will not disturb you anymore." Qin Yen did not say another word. She covered her eyes and hurriedly ran towards the direction of the front yard. From the beginning, she had felt that the relationship between her lady and Yun Shao was not ordinary. She never thought that their relationship would develop to such an extent. "No, I must tell the general about this. Let the general be happy too." "Yun Shao, how long do you intend to press down on me?" Yun Luofeng retracted his gaze from Qin Yan's back and raised his eyebrows devilishly as he asked. Yun Shao slowly let go of the young girl in his arms. His cold, dark eyes swept over Qin Yan and an undetectable glint flashed in his eyes. "Yun Shao, did you do that to Mu Wushuang?" The young girl's voice brought Yun Shao back to his senses. His dark eyes turned towards Yun Luofeng and he replied grimly, "She asked for it." If it wasn't for the fact that Mu Wushuang and Gao Ling had often humiliated Yun Luofeng, perhaps he would not have been so ruthless. "Yun Shao, I think that my master will come looking for me very soon to question me. I need to think about how to deal with that old fellow first." If this little girl, Qin Yan, had seen this matter, it will definitely reach Master Yun's ears. So, I need to be prepared to deal with him. Even though she had flirted with Yun Shao in public, under those circumstances, Master Sheng would only think that she was putting on an act. Now that it had been broken by Qin Yan, its nature had changed. Just as Yun Luofeng had guessed, not long after, Yun Luo had sent someone to summon her to the study. Originally, Yun Luofeng had planned to deal with the old man alone, but Yun Xiao had stubbornly followed by her side. When Yun Luofeng wanted him to stay here again, he only said, "You said that you wouldn't let me wait for you here in the future. No matter what you do, take me with you." With just this one sentence, all of Yun Luofeng's words of refusal disappeared. Although this guy was usually very obedient, sometimes his temper was as stubborn as a bull. No one's words could change his mind. So, in the end, Yun Xiao still followed Yun Luofeng to the study. In the study, Master Dongfang had a straight face as he stared at the two people who had just entered the study. His elderly features were frighteningly solemn. "Tell me, what's going on with you two?" He cleared his throat and asked sternly. Yun Xiao gripped Yun Luofeng's hand tightly as her grim brows furrowed. "This matter." Chapter 235. "I'm not asking you, I'm asking that damned girl, Yun Luofeng." Master Yun snorted coldly and said irritably. If it had been anyone else who dared to speak to Yun Xiao like this, they would have been beheaded long ago. But this old man was Yun Luofeng's relative. He couldn't get angry at Yun Luofeng's relative. Even so, Yun Xiao still took a step forward and shielded Yun Luofeng's body behind her, as if she was afraid that Master Yun would hurt him in his rage. "What do you want me to say?" Yun Luofeng raised an eyebrow. "You've already seen it anyway, what else can I say?" "You." Master Yun's face was ashen with anger. "Damned girl, I haven't disciplined you all these years and you've become more and more lawless. You've taken advantage of him and you still don't fucking want to take responsibility? Is my granddaughter such an irresponsible woman who takes advantage of others? If you don't take responsibility, I won't admit that you're a Yun family seed." Yun Luofeng glanced sideways at the furious Master Yun. "I'm still young." What she meant was that she was still young and didn't want to get married so early. "You damned girl, your mother married your father when she was 15, you're just a month away from turning 15. You dare say that you're still young? Your parents are such responsible people, why did they give birth to a daughter like you who leaves after eating and wiping your mouth?" Master Yun was so angry that he almost vomited blood. If this little girl, Qing Yan, hadn't happened to see this scene, he reckoned that this girl would continue to be so irresponsible. "Are you done?" "I'm a little tired, Yun Xiao, let's go rest." Yun Luofeng yawned lazily. For her now, it wasn't time to get married yet. She would only consider these things after she had avenged her parents. Those people from the Mu family had not been punished yet, how could she enjoy life in peace? Master Yun held his breath and said with an ashen face, "Damned girl, Yun Xiao is a good child. I liked him from the first time I saw him. You've already done such a beastly thing to him and you still want to be irresponsible?" "Beastly?" The corner of Yun Luofeng's mouth twitched fiercely. So in his grandfather's heart, he was the kind of irresponsible beast that ate and wiped clean? The old man snorted and no longer paid attention to Yun Luofeng. He turned his gaze towards Yun Xiao. "Ah Xiao, don't worry, I will definitely get justice for you in this matter. By the way, where are your relatives? I want to discuss the wedding with them some other day." Yun Luofeng looked at Yun Xiao in front of him and answered on his behalf. "He is an orphan, he has no relatives." "Is that so?" Hearing Yun Luofeng's words, the old man looked at Yun Xiao with a hint of pity in his eyes. "Then what a pitiful child. Since your surname is Yun now, from now on, the members of the Yun family will be your family, so you are no longer an orphan." Yun Zhao's face did not reveal anything from beginning to end, his pair of black eyes were as cold as ever. However, no one knew that as soon as the old man finished speaking, his heart was in turmoil. "All right." After a while, he raised his head and stared at the old man's deeply concerned face as he spoke in a hoarse voice. "Look at how well-behaved Ah Xiao is." The old man glared at Yun Luofeng and scoffed, "Not like you, always making me angry all day long. Ah Xiao is a good child, he knows how to protect you, but in the end, you've pulled up your pants and then disregarded me." Chapter 236. "You're not going to acknowledge me just because I pulled up my pants?" Yun Luofeng rubbed his nose and asked in a low voice, "Am I really such a beast?" You just realized. Master Yun looked at Yun Luofeng with disdain, as if Yun Luofeng had just realized that he was a beast. If Yun Luofeng had really pushed Yun Shao down, she would have admitted to Master Yun's words. But nothing had happened between her and Yun Shao, so how could she not acknowledge him? Of course, she also understood that even if she told this matter to the old master would not believe it. Hence, she decided not to explain further. She narrowed her eyes and said, "Grandfather, this is between me and Yun Shao. You don't have to worry about it." "Stupid girl, grandfather is doing this for your own good." Master Yun looked at Yun Luofeng. Yun Shao is better than Gao Ling in every aspect. Based on his abilities, no one in Long Yuan country is his match. Yet, he willingly stays by your side. Don't you understand why? From his words, it was clear that Master Yun was very satisfied with Yun Shao. At least, he was much better than that scumbag Gao Ling. Have you been bored out of your mind lately? Yun Luofeng's narrowed eyes shone with a sinister light. If you've been bored out of your mind lately, go to the underground training ground and help second uncle. Hearing this, Grandpa Xing immediately fell silent. He had finally reached his twilight years. How could he be willing to work so hard? Leaving the Yun family matters to the younger generation was enough. He just wanted to chat and drink tea every day, living a carefree life. "You stupid girl, I'm your grandfather, how dare you threaten me?" Master Yun's voice became softer and softer, as if he was worried that his granddaughter would send him to train the army. "You still remember that you're my grandfather? If someone saw this, they would think that Yun Shao is your grandson and that you picked me up from the streets." Yun Luofeng smirked, her voice full of evil. Although she said this, she was not really angry. After all, it was a good thing that her grandfather liked Yun Shao. She had been worried that her grandfather would not accept her. "I've always been on the side of reason, not family," Master Yun said stubbornly. Of course, if Yun Luofeng was facing Mu Wuxuan or someone from the royal family, even if his granddaughter was wrong, then he would also think it was right. If anyone dared to speak ill of his granddaughter, he would definitely exterminate their entire clan. However, when it came to matters of the heart, he would definitely stand on the side of reason and not the family. Who asked his granddaughter to eat up the other party, pull up her pants and leave? You still don't want to take responsibility? How could he do that? He would never allow such a thing to happen. "I'll take care of this myself. If you're too bored, I'll send you to the underground training ground to train the army with second uncle." Yun Luofeng raised the corner of his lips. "Do you choose to drink tea and enjoy fruits, or do you want to work for the army? Grade fruit? What fruit?" "Spirit fruit." These two words caused the old man's eyes to light up. He coughed dryly, turned his gaze towards Yun Shao and chuckled, "Ah Shao, this granddaughter of mine is really disobedient and I really can't influence her decision. However, I support you in taking her down. If my granddaughter marries, her partner can only be you. I definitely won't acknowledge anyone else." What a joke. With such a powerful and obedient person like Yun Shao by his side, who else could compare to him? If his granddaughter were to abandon Yun Shao, he would be the first to object. Chapter 237. Grandfather. Yun Luofeng's expression darkened. "Do I look like a heartless person? Or the kind that eats and leaves without any responsibility?" The old man cleared his throat and coughed twice. Even though he didn't say it out loud, his eyes clearly expressed that you're that kind of person. Seeing that Yun Luofeng's expression was darkening, the old man laughed awkwardly. "I won't disturb you now, you guys chat amongst yourselves, For the sake of not going to the underground training ground to train the army, for the sake of his spirit fruit, he could only let Yun Shao down." Thinking of this, the old man hurriedly slipped out of the door. When he reached the door, he suddenly thought of something and turned around to remind her, "Girl, don't forget my spirit fruit." After saying this, he didn't stay any longer and hurriedly left. The entire study returned to its usual calm. It was so calm that even the sound of the other person's breathing could be heard clearly. "Yun Shao, did you do it on purpose?" Yun Luofeng raised the corners of his lips and took 2 steps towards the man. you let Qin Yan see that scene on purpose. With Yun Zhao's power, he would be able to sense even the appearance of an ant within 100 miles. However, he didn't warn her about Qin Yan's intrusion. And she had even carelessly retracted her consciousness and didn't notice the other person's arrival. Yun Xiao nodded honestly and admitted Yun Luofeng's words. Yun Xiao, Yun Luofeng smiled. Her smile was beautiful and full of danger. When did you become so two-faced? Yun Zhao's expression instantly tensed up. You are angry? Do I look like someone who gets angry so easily? Yun Luofeng's smile became even more demonic and moving. Yun Xiao and Gao Xiaochen were different. Gao Xiaochen, that man, was full of schemes. Interacting with him made her feel as if there was a dagger at her back. As for Yun Xiao, no matter what he did, he would never hurt her. It was because of this that she forgave the man for what he had done today. Although I'm not angry at you, I still have to give you a small punishment for your actions today. Yun Luofeng slightly narrowed his eyes, his demonic eyes filled with a dangerous light. From tonight onwards, you and I will sleep on the same bed. However, you're not allowed to touch me. Yun Zhao's expression stiffened slightly. Every time he got close to Yun Luofeng, a fiery impulse would emerge in his heart. Not to mention sharing a bed with her. It would have been fine if they had only shared the same bed, but he could not touch her. What kind of torment was this for a normal man? However, Yun Xiao still nodded and agreed, okay. He couldn't refuse any of her requests. After Yun Luofeng left the study, he found a quiet place to sit cross-legged and let his consciousness enter the divine grimoire space. Within the space, little Mo saw Yun Luofeng appear out of nowhere. Her lips twitched as her eyes were filled with resentment. Master, when are you going to dual cultivate with Yun Xiao? Yun Luofeng glanced at him and didn't say anything. He bent down to pick the spirit herbs in the medicine field. Master, you've already performed so well. You'll definitely have many suitors in the future. Yun Xiao only wanted to marry you and bring you back home. He intentionally let Qin Yan bump into the matter between the two of you, so it's understandable. Who asked you to be so irresponsible? Chapter 238. Xiao Mo noticed that Yun Luofeng was ignoring him and continued to prattle on. Master, are you really going to be a beast that ignores people when they lift up their pants? Yun Luofeng's hand, which was holding the spiritual medicine, trembled slightly. His demonic eyes swept across Xiao Mo's pink and tender face as he curled his lips and said, My grandfather doesn't know that our relationship has progressed to this stage. Don't tell me you don't know either. I've never even taken off his clothes. How could I not recognize people when I lift up my pants? Xiao Mo gently stroked his chin. You may not have taken off his clothes, but you've ripped them. Yun Luofeng's brows twitched. She took a deep breath and slowly replied, Xiao Mo, I do have a good impression of Yun Xiao and I don't mind him getting close to me. I feel very safe by his side. Even though this fellow has tricked me once today, I know that he would never lie to me and would never hurt me. This man would rather abandon the entire world than let me go. How could I not feel anything? Besides, even if he had denied everything that had happened today, I would probably choose to believe him. However, he would rather risk her anger and admit to what he had done. What else could be more trustworthy than a man who doesn't even know how to lie? But, Xiao Mo, do you know about my situation in Wuxia? Yun Luofeng turned towards Xiao Mo. In my past life, I had seen my parents being murdered with my own eyes and they lay in a pool of blood. The person who had harmed my parents had not only stolen my family's property but had also gotten away scot-free. I had been sent to an orphanage. If I had not met my benefactor, I would never have been able to walk out of this shadow. Xiao Mo was shaken and fell silent. She had met Yun Luofeng at Wuxia University, but she was not aware of what had happened to Yun Luofeng before this. Now, not only have I been given a second life, I even have a loved one. How could I allow my loved ones to be bullied? Even though she often talked back to Master Yun, he was the closest family member she had in this world. Hence, she must avenge the parents of this body. Only then would Master Yun be able to walk out of his past hatred. Master, if you want revenge, then you should dual cultivate with Yun Xiao. This way, your strength will increase even faster. Little Mo bit her lips as she spoke. Yun Luofeng shook his head. I can also take revenge with my own efforts. Little Mo, to me, the relationship between a man and a woman has always been a beautiful thing, not a condition to increase my strength. That's right, I have a very good impression of Yun Xiao and I don't resist his contact, but that doesn't mean that I'm willing to give myself to him right now. Little Mo opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but he swallowed the words that were at the tip of his tongue. His gaze was complicated as he said, Master, even though I wish for you and Yun Xiao to dual cultivate, I am willing to respect your decision now. With Master's personality, she definitely wouldn't roll in bed with a man just for the sake of dual cultivation. Only when she completely fell in love with this man, she would completely give herself to him. Shouldn't he admire this kind of master? In this continent where the strong were respected, how many people could follow their hearts and not be tempted by powerful strength to dual cultivate with others? Master, I believe that the day when you and Yun Xiao dual cultivate together won't be too far away. Little Mo smiled and revealed a pair of cute little canine teeth. His bright eyes were like the stars in the night sky, emitting a resplendent light. Based on the speed at which Master and Yun Xiao were progressing, it wouldn't take long before his wish would come true. Chapter 239. The Bamboo House. In a luxurious room, Mu Wuxuang's body was wrapped tightly in a sheet. Her face was pale and her eyes were lifeless and filled with despair. Her eyes were filled with deep pain. Gao Ling, Yun Luofeng, one day, I will make them suffer a fate worse than death. Mu Wuxuang's eyes burned with hatred at the thought of how these people had harmed her to such an extent. It was as if a flame was burning in her heart. Knock, knock, knock. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door. The sound was like a curse, causing Mu Wuxuang's body to tremble violently. She bit her lip and asked, Who is it? Wuxuang, it's me. Outside the door, the voice that had once haunted her dreams drifted in, causing the hatred in her eyes to grow even stronger. However, she suppressed the anger in her heart and said, Come in. Creak. The door was pushed open, and a thin figure slowly walked into the room. The young man's face was as handsome as a knife, but his aura was no longer as sharp as before. Instead, it was filled with a sense of decadence. He stared blankly at Mu Wuxuang and asked in a dry voice, Wuxuang, are you all right? All right? Under these circumstances, he's actually asking if I'm all right? What's the difference between this and slapping me? Mu Wuxuang took a deep breath and a mournful smile appeared on her pale face. Crown Prince, no matter what I do for you, it's all worth it, Wuxuang. Gao Ling strode forward and pulled Mu Wuxuang's soft body into his arms. He did not notice the cold glint in the young girl's eyes. How could she treat Gao Ling the way she did in the beginning after experiencing such a thing? However, in order to make this man feel guilty, she could only pretend that nothing had happened. Crown Prince. Mu Wuxuang raised her pale face and asked with tears in her eyes, Can you tell me who brought you to this place? I'd like to know who I've been tricked by. Was it that slut Yun Luofeng? Gao Ling frowned when he heard Mu Wuxuang's question. He used to think that Mu Wuxuang was better than Yun Luofeng. Now, aside from her outstanding powers, Mu Wuxuang could not be compared to Yun Luofeng in any other way. What's more, Dr. Yun Luofeng's status is not worse than Mu Wuxuang's. Especially since Mu Wuxuang could already sleep with anyone. Moreover, she had just served an old man. At this moment, Gao Ling had completely forgotten who caused Mu Wuxuang to fall into this situation. If it weren't for his selfishness, Mu Wuxuang wouldn't have lost his virginity. And because of this matter, his heart was filled with disgust towards Mu Wuxuang. He thought that she was not behaving like a woman and was having an affair here. Even though Gao Ling was thinking this, he did not show it on his face. An imperceptible light flashed across his eyes as he said, This was not done by Yun Luofeng. It was the Ghost Emperor. Ghost Emperor? Mu Wuxuang's body shook as he looked at Gao Ling in surprise. You mean the Ghost Emperor who is known for his ruthlessness? Your Highness, how did you provoke such a person? The Ghost Emperor was a legend on this continent. 3 years ago, the man known as the Ghost Emperor appeared before the eyes of the world. It was said that this Ghost Emperor was iron-blooded, cold and decisive. In these 3 years, many people had died by his hand. During this time, many righteous men had encircled and annihilated the Ghost Emperor in order to maintain peace on the mainland. Who would have thought that none of them would return? They had disappeared without a trace. It was because of this that the Ghost Emperor's name had spread to the ears of the world. Chapter 240. Wasn't there a saying that goes, everything under the heavens is yellow soil? Yet this Ghost Emperor was someone who gave the royal family headaches. You still dare to ask me about this? Gao Ling's handsome face sank upon hearing this. Back then, when the Ghost Emperor's subordinates were dealing with me, they accused me of trying to snatch the Ghost Emperor's woman. I've always wanted to ask you, how did you manage to hook up with the Ghost Emperor? If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have suffered such a punishment. Mu Wuxuang's already shocked eyes widened even more. You're saying that the Ghost Emperor is interested in me? Gao Ling did not speak. His expression was extremely ugly. Every time he thought of the torture he had endured over the past few days, his heart would go crazy. Your Royal Highness, Mu Wuxuang gritted his teeth when he saw Gao Ling's ashen face. He rose to his feet and hugged the man in front of him. Your Royal Highness, don't worry, the person I love will always be you. Gao Ling's eyes flickered as he looked down at Mu Wuxuang. Now that I've told you about the Ghost Emperor's love for you, aren't you moved at all? Your Royal Highness, rumor has it that the Ghost Emperor has always been wearing a mask. No one has ever seen his true face. If he was truly handsome, he wouldn't have covered his face with a mask. Therefore, Wuxuang guessed that the Ghost Emperor must be so ugly that he can't be seen in public. How could he compare to your Royal Highness? As long as your Royal Highness doesn't give up on Wuxuang, Wuxuang will not leave your Royal Highness. A man as powerful as the Ghost Emperor would never want his woman to lose her virginity. Therefore, even though Mu Wuxuang's heart was moved for a moment, she quickly regained her composure. It was likely that the Ghost Emperor had not expected to drag her into this mess when he was dealing with Gao Ling. Now that she was no longer innocent, she could only cling on to Gao Ling as her last hope. Unfortunately, if she was still pure, she would have chosen to throw herself into the Ghost Emperor's arms instead of following a scumbag like Gao Ling. At least the Ghost Emperor's power was not just a little bit stronger than Gao Ling. From the beginning to the end, Mu Wuxuang never doubted Gao Ling's words. In her opinion, with her outstanding talent, it was only natural that the Ghost Emperor would like her. As for why the Ghost Emperor had never revealed his feelings to her, her explanation was that the Ghost Emperor was afraid of scaring her, so he had hidden his love for her. However, he was unwilling to let Gao Ling wander around in front of her, so he decided to attack Gao Ling. Wuxuang, it's good that you understand. Gao Ling's expression softened. You've suffered so much for me these past few days. When we return to the palace, I'll give you a title. Go back to the palace? Mu Wuxuang smiled bitterly. Your Highness, do you think the people in Bamboo House will let us go? Gao Ling's eyes flickered. Just now, Lady Chun looked for me. She said that as long as you serve a few spirit beasts tonight, she'll let us go tomorrow. The youth's words were like a bolt from the blue, causing Mu Wuxuang to raise her beautiful eyes in disbelief, her eyes filled with deep shock. Your Highness, you actually want me to serve the spirit beast? Was this the real reason why he had come looking for her today? And when he said that he was willing to marry her, was it so that she would suffer even more humiliation? Mu Wuxuang's body trembled slightly. Her snow-white face was filled with despair. She could endure it if he asked her to sell her body, but to serve the spirit beast, how could she endure it?